Good evening. At this time, I'll reconvene into open session this meeting of the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for July 30th, 2026, beginning at 6:45 p.m. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our board meetings are open to the public and we welcome everyone. We appreciate your participation in public education. While our meetings are open to the public, this is a meeting and we have business to conduct. Disruptions will not be permitted. Anyone who disrupts the meeting or speaks when others are speaking may be asked to leave or be escorted out by the security attending the meeting. We welcome civic input, but insist that we remain respectful and civil. Thank you for your cooperation. We will now begin with the pledges led by Trustee Fowler. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. This evening, Trustee Richardson is not with us tonight. She is out of the country with her family, but she sends her regards. And we will now move on to our administrative appointments. With no speakers registered for the appointment section tonight, we will go ahead and move on. Following the appointments, we will take a brief recess for photos and celebrations in the boardroom and lobby. Everyone is invited to join us. Do I have a motion to ratify the appointments of the individuals discussed in closed session? I have a motion from Trustee Fowler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wilbanks. Trustees, please vote. All in the affirmative. Thank you. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, as you know, earlier this evening, we had a reception to recognize some new appointees that you just approved for Arlington ISD. I'm going to read them real quickly just so that we make sure we recognize them in the meeting as well. Assistant Principal at Sam Houston High School, Mary Morris. Assistant Principal at Berry Elementary School, Leslie Cristiano. Assistant Principal at Butler Elementary, Jennifer Myers. Assistant Principal at Dunn, Monique Taylor. Assistant Principal at Farrell, Rachel Butts. At Key Elementary, our Assistant Principal, Andrea Pack. At Cookin Early Childhood Learning Academy, Assistant Principal, Dr. Christina Hansen. Assistant Principal at Jones Academy, Vanessa Vasquez. Assistant Principal at Sherrod, Travis Merrill. And Assistant Principal at Wood Elementary, Tiffany Rollins. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. It's also my honor to welcome some new principals that you approved this evening as well. And tonight you'll get a chance to hear a little bit from them. I'll introduce them. And as I'm introducing you, please come on up and get ready to share with our Board of Trustees. First, I'd like to introduce our new principal at Bowie High School, Justin Edwards. Justin brings 16 years of experience in Fort Worth ISD and a strong track record of academic leadership, school improvement, and student success. He has served as a middle school math teacher, assistant principal, dean at the Young Men's Leadership Academy, principal, and most recently principal at Dunbar High School. Throughout his career, he has led turnaround efforts, developed high-performing teams, and advanced student achievement through expertise in the Effective Schools Framework, Texas Instructional Leadership, and Data-Driven Instruction. His collaborative leadership, commitment to excellence, and focus on building strong relationships make him an outstanding choice to lead Bowie High School and continue its tradition of success. Mr. Edwards, welcome to the Arlington ISD family.
Thank you, Principal Morrow, members of the board, Dr. Smith, for the opportunity to positively impact students. Thank you, baby. And serve the students of Arlington ISD. Before we get into that, I would like to acknowledge my support system. My wife, 14 years, my daughter, Autumn, who turns 2 in October, and my son, August, who will turn 6 next week. And so with that, and I would like to also thank Executive Director Dr. Jarko for his support during this transition and various members of the district who have allowed this transition. And look forward to continuing and building on the success of Bowie High School. So thank you for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure to now welcome our new principal at Martin High School, Victoria Youngblood Baldwin. Victoria brings nearly 20 years of experience in public education, serving Irving ISD, Grapevine, Colleyville, and she's coming home because she was in Arlington ISD before as well. She's held leadership and instructional roles, including English teacher, AVID coordinator, dean of students, assistant principal, and most recently served as principal of Irving MacArthur High School. She holds a master's degree from Dallas Baptist University and has led initiatives in college career and military readiness, instructional coaching, teacher mentoring, PBIS, and systems that support student success. Her collaborative leadership and focus on continuous improvement have driven positive outcomes for students and staff that she's served. We are pleased to welcome Victoria back to the Arlington ISD family and as the new principal at Martin High School. Congratulations.
Thank you. President McMurrow, Superintendent Smith, members of the Board of Trustees, and members of the Arlington ISD and Martin High School communities. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as the next principal of Martin High School. I am truly honored, grateful, and excited to join the Martin family. Returning to Arlington ISD is especially meaningful to me. This district has played an important role in shaping me as an educator and as a leader, and I'm grateful for the students and staff, colleagues, and mentors who have shaped me and grown me throughout my journey. Over the past month, I have had the privilege of getting to know the Martin community. I came to listen before I led, and through the conversations with students, staff, families, and community members, one thing has become abundantly clear to me. Our greatest strength is our people. Thank you for welcoming me with such warmth and kindness. I look forward to continuing to listen, learn, and serve alongside you. Finally, I want to thank my family for their love, encouragement, and support. Over there. None of us serves alone, and I am incredibly grateful for the people who have walked beside me through this journey. Thank you again. It is an honor to come home to Arlington ISD, and I look forward to serving the Martin community with humility, heart, and a commitment to serving every student.
Trustees, I now get to introduce our new principal at Bergen Elementary, Ms. LaToya Turner. Ms. Turner is a dedicated instructional leader who has served as assistant principal at Bergen Elementary since 2020, where she's built strong relationships with students, families, and staff while helping strengthen instruction and student achievement. Prior to joining Bergen, she served in a variety of leadership and instructional roles, including principal of the district's summer learning program, testing coordinator, gifted and talented specialist, principal intern, and classroom teacher. We are excited to welcome LaToya as the new principal of Bergen Elementary and are confident her leadership, deep knowledge of the campus community, and commitment to student success will continue to help every student, staff member, and family at Bergen Elementary thrive. Congratulations.
Good evening, President McMurrow, members of the board, and Dr. Smith. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am truly honored and humbled to accept the opportunity to serve as principal at the Bergen Elementary School in Arlington ISD. It is a privilege that I do not take lightly, and I am committed to serving our students, staff, families, and community with integrity, excellence, and heart. To my family, my husband Ralph and son Ralph Aiden, thank you for your unwavering love, encouragement, and countless sacrifices. You are truly my motivation to strive and be the best version of me. Your love and support has been my foundation, and I would not be standing here without you. Thank you. To my mentors, Karen Hicks, Cindy Corbett, and Christy Wilkes, thank you for pouring into me throughout my journey as a teacher and school leader. Thank you for believing in me, challenging me to grow, and modeling what servant leadership looks like. To my former principal, mentor, and friend, Karen Tufts, thank you for not only being an incredible principal mentor, but also a true friend. Your guidance, encouragement, and unwavering support have helped shape me into a stronger leader. I'm so grateful for the wisdom you shared, the confidence you instilled in me, and the genuine friendship we built along the way. To my executive director, Dr. Claudia Morales, Thank you for your leadership, encouragement, and belief in my potential. Your guidance and support have challenged me to grow as a leader, and I am truly grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow with you. And finally, to my Bergen family, thank you for welcoming, supporting, and encouraging me every step of the way. Thank you for making Bergen feel like home. I'm excited and honored to continue this journey as your principal, and I can't wait to build our strong foundation as we accomplish great things together for our students, staff, and community. Thank you again, and I'm honored to serve in Arlington ISD.
It's my pleasure to now welcome one more principal to the Arlington ISD family. Please help me welcome Amy Carlisle as the principal at Hale Elementary. Amy brings a wealth of experience in instructional leadership and student support, most recently serving as principal of Ponder Elementary in Mansfield ISD. Prior to her principalship, she served as an assistant principal, ELAR instructional coach in the special education department, and special education teacher. Amy holds a Master of Science in Educational Leadership from the University of North Texas, a Bachelor of Science in Family Life and Community Service from Kansas State University, and has dedicated her career to building positive school cultures, strengthening instruction, and developing educators to ensure student success. We are excited to welcome Amy as the new principal of Lynn Hale Elementary and are confident her leadership will help create a culture where every student, staff member, and family feels valued, supported, and empowered to succeed. Welcome, Amy.
Good evening, President McMurrow, members of the board, and Dr. Smith. I am truly honored and blessed to have the opportunity to continue my leadership journey in Arlington ISD. I'm excited to serve the students, staff, and community of Lynn Hale, and I know that there are great things in our future. Thank you again.
Thank you all, and congratulations to our new principals and APs that we celebrated in our awesome reception earlier this evening. I am going to go ahead and call us into a brief 5-minute recess.
We got one more item.
Sorry, one more item, then recess. Sorry. We will consider approval, thank you, Dr. Smith, of our Chief Academic Officer contract. Do I have a motion to approve the contract? Thank you. Motion from Trustee Mike. Is there a second? Thank you. I'll give this one to Trustee Haynes. Oh, sorry, I saw a hand up. Please vote. Thank you. All in the affirmative. Dr. Smith.
Trustees and everyone in attendance tonight, we are extremely excited to welcome a new member of our leadership team in Arlington ISD. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Priscilla Dilley as our new Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Dilley is a dedicated educational leader with extensive experience in instructional leadership, school improvement, and executive leadership throughout her career. She has served in a variety of leadership roles, from bilingual teacher and campus principal to executive director, senior officer, and currently chief of schools, where she's focused on building meaningful relationships, coaching leaders, implementing rigorous instructional practices, and fostering a culture of clarity, accountability, and continuous improvement. I also have to note, her reputation precedes her as just a caring, dynamic leader that will do everything she can for students in Arlington ISD. We are glad to have you on our team, Priscilla. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith and President McMurrow and members of the board. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your trust and confidence in what you've placed in me as your selection for the Chief Academic Officer. I am truly honored and humbled. For me, this role is one thing, and that's about serving students. Every decision that we make is in the interests of our students and our children to learn, grow, and succeed. I'm excited to work alongside our schools, our principals, teachers, staff, and families to ensure that every student receives high-quality education that they deserve. So I want to thank also my support system. My husband's here, Mike Dilley, and our kids are not here. They're doing mission trips, so that's a good reason not to be here. But throughout my career, you've been a great support, so thank you. This is an incredible opportunity, and I am very excited about serving this community. Thank you for having me tonight.
Congratulations, Dr. Dilly. Now we have even more to celebrate. So I'm going to adjourn us into a 5-minute recess. We will resume at about 7:05. We will now reconvene at 7:13 p.m. Due to honoring people's time, I know that many of you here are here for certain agenda items. I want to rearrange a couple agenda items. I'm going to move up the consent agenda, and then after we move on the consent agenda, we will go back to the agenda as originally written and go to our reports. So we will now move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull an item for further discussion? Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we will move to vote. Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chop. Sorry, can you push your button again, Mr. Chop?
Thank you, President McMurrow. I don't have any discussion on consent, but as I sometimes do, I would like to have my votes recorded on this. I intend to vote yes for consent as a whole, but I would like my votes to be recorded as an abstention on item 9C, an abstention on item, I can find it, item 9I, and a no on item 9T. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Fowler. Is there a second? Okay. Trustee Haynes. We will move to adopt the consent agenda. Please vote. The motion carries with 5-4, and Mr. Chapa has abstained from items 9C, 9I, and 1 no for, what was that one? 9T. Thank you. Thank you, trustees. We will now move back to our original order of the agenda.
Trustees, for item A, our 25-26 key progress measure report, not key progress pressure report is what I was going to say, but key progress measure report. Dr. Collins is going to join us at the podium to walk us through a couple of things. As you know, we've leaned into these key progress measures as something different for Arlington ISD over the past 2 years, and we've done our best to make sure we report out on these on a regular basis to you in regular board meetings. And at the end of every year, we say, here are the key progress measures we adopted for the year, and here's how we did. Tonight's presentation is just that.
End of year report on our 25-26 district priorities and key progress measures. So you have heard reports about each of these KPMs over the course of the 25-26 school year. You've participated in workshops on this work, so none of this is new information, but what we've done is we've provided a comprehensive review this evening of each of these targets. Just as a reminder for you and for those who may be watching, our priorities and key progress measures have 3 parts. So we have a priority statement and a goal, and those were adopted by the board a couple of years ago and have remained consistent here in Arlington ISD for the last couple of years. And then key progress measures are established each year as those big benchmarks, the goals that we're striving to reach for that year. So these are our priorities and the goal statements. Again, that have been consistent for the last couple of years. And we're going to use this framework here where we will report out that we either met the KPM or we did not meet the KPM. So a little different than what we did earlier this year. All right, so goal or KPM number 1 about academic growth. So it was to meet all House Bill 3 goals for the 25-26 school year. As you know, House Bill 3 includes metrics for third grade reading, third grade math, and CCMR. Our goal was to move third grade reading from 40% to 41%, and we maintained at 40% at the meets level instead of growing, so we did not meet that. For third grade math, our goal was to move from 35 to 36. We actually decreased 1 point in third grade mathematics, so we did not meet that part of the goal. The CCMR part of the goal was to increase from 92 to 93, and we actually increased to 95. So overall, we said that we did not meet this goal. I believe that we have a lot of work that's happening around literacy and mathematics in this district. We've already had teachers and leaders that have been participating in training regarding the initiatives for reading and math. We are excited and believe that we're going to see some change in these areas, but we know that there is a lot of work to do. Academic growth, KPM number 2 was to implement structured literacy, research-based practices in all K-3 literacy classrooms as documented by administrator classroom visits. And did we meet this goal? Yes. Our next step with this is to go from did we have this happening in our classrooms to what was the quality of this happening in our classrooms. And so even though we've met this goal, we know that there's still work to be done here regarding structured literacy practices. Academic growth, KPM number 3, was to develop our curriculum management plan, and we also met this goal. One of the pieces of evidence that you'll see documented down at the bottom is the policy, EH Local, that our governance team has been working on for many, many months, and it's actually a part of the consent agenda that you just approved. So hooray, officially approved already this evening. So this is what academic growth looks like for us for the 25-26 school year. So a no for the first one, and then 2 yeses for 2 and 3. Regarding culture, our first KPM was to increase our Net Promoter Score from 24 to 30 on the annual staff survey. We knew that this was an ambitious goal, and Trustee Mike, I remember you asking us some questions whenever we set this goal, like, is it too big? Like, are we really going to be able to reach it? And we felt really strongly this was the goal that we wanted to have in front of us. We did not meet this goal, though we did increase the number of promoters total. We did not reach the goal that we had set. So we had 25 as our final measure that we reached instead of the 30. So we grew, but we did not grow to. The second culture KPM was to engage students, staff, and families in clearly defining the desired student experience in Arlington ISD, and we did achieve this goal. We had lots of stakeholders that came together to work on the definition of the student experience, and you'll see that definition there on the bottom right. We want students to feel safe, valued, and included, experience high-quality, engaging learning, and be prepared for life skills for multiple pathways. And so our next step is, now that we have this definition, how do we bring it to fruition through the strategic plan, which is actually our next agenda. And then the next culture goal is to reduce the number of campuses having a D or F rating in the state accountability system. So this one we have listed as a TBD because the state accountability system data has not yet been released. But we have an amazing team that has been working together to try to do some projections. And so what we're going to show you tonight are those projections. The work that we did on our campuses that were DNF campuses last year was transformational. We learned a lot through the process, and so what this graph in the bottom right shows are, in light blue, the number of DNF campuses that we had in 2025, and then in the dark blue, those same 23 campuses, how we project that they will perform in 2026. So you can see that those campuses where we heavily invested time and resources, that they saw growth and improvement for their students, and we're really proud of that work. So, but that's only for the 23 that were the high focus campuses that were Ds and Fs. So this is the data for all of our campuses. So what you'll notice when you look at those lighter blue bars, so that was the 2025 data, you'll see that that bell curve is shifted slightly to the right, like the distribution is shifted more towards that BC range. What you'll notice for 2026, what we are projecting is that we have a much more even distribution. It looks like a traditional bell curve, right, with the peak in the middle. And so we are committed to not only focusing on our campuses in need and seeing success there, but focusing on each and every one of our campuses and each and every one of our students. We want to see that same type of growth happen across every campus in our system. So for our cultural goal, we have that we did not meet the first one. We did meet the second. We anticipate an X for the third one, though we don't officially have that listed. Safety and discipline. So we wanted to increase the procedural effectiveness factor score from the campus safety working conditions domain on the annual staff survey. So we were trying to move from a 4.0 to a 4.1. We did see growth this year of 0.05%. And so you'll see that number circled in red there in the bottom, but we didn't see the growth from 4.0 to 4.1. You'll notice that we did see some growth in 3 of those indicators there. So we feel like we're making progress. We just did not make the progress that we hoped. The next safety and discipline KPM was for 100% of our campuses to implement their behavior support plans with fidelity, as evidenced by observation and coaching with the Office of School Leadership. So this is a snapshot of some of that data. You'll notice our increased referral count from 2025 to 2026, and a lot of that is attributed to our Away for the Day initiative that was implemented in the fall. And so we know that at the beginning of the school year, there were a lot of students who were learning about managing their cell phones during the school day. And so we did see that increase back in the fall, but we anticipate that the beginning of this next school year will be a little bit for us. But we did meet this goal, and we are. So for safety and discipline, we did not meet the first, but we did. For marketing engagement, we wanted to increase our net promoter score from 41 to 42 on the annual parent and family survey. And did we meet this goal? We did. So our goal was to grow from 41 to 42, and we actually grew to 44.8. And so we are really proud of that we have parents who are saying you should bring your student to Arlington ISD. So I'm thankful for those increased partnerships with our. And then the second marketing and engagement KPM was around measuring the impact of a targeted marketing campaign to re-engage families that have chosen charter school options by March 30th, 2026. Did we meet this goal? Yes, we did. We achieved the goal. But I would say that we are dissatisfied with the outcomes of the strategy that we implemented, and we know we need to try some different things. So we are working to try to figure out how we can reach out to families as soon as they are making decisions to exit Arlington ISD, to find out more about that and figuring out what that year-long marketing campaign is going to look like. You know that our team, our communications team, has been working on their marketing plan, and they're committed to bringing us some really specific strategies in the next couple. And so for marketing engagement, we met both of those key progress measures. And then finally, talent and resources. So we had a KPM to reduce the general fund budget deficit by 33% while maintaining the general fund operating fund balance threshold at 25% and maintaining 60% of the total adopted budgeted funds in instruction and instructional related services. And you guys helped us out with this. And yes, we were able to meet this goal this year. And we know that this was just a third of that budget deficit, that there is still more work to be done, and that we're going to continue to need to focus in on this work across our district. And then finally, talent and resources to develop and implement a comprehensive program evaluation process that directly supports our district priorities. And again, we were able to meet this goal. We actually have some program evaluations that are already underway, both internally with our team, as well as some external evaluators that are partnering with us to do some larger scale program evaluations. And so we're excited about this process up and running. So for talent and resources, we had yeses for both of our. So this is overall what our KPM report looks like. Actually, tomorrow, our cabinet team is coming together to have some really important dialogue about our proposal for KPMs for the 26-27 school year. And we know that there is some continued work to happen, but we also know there's some different transformational work that wasn't captured this last year that is going to need to be a focus for us. And so we look forward to bringing you some additional conversations, not only about what we've done in the past, but about looking forward with future APMs.
The trustees, as you can see, we didn't hit all of them, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. There are certain things that you saw in some of those targets that I think are important to point out. Some of the measures and outcomes didn't move as much as we wanted them to. They still moved, but they didn't move as much as they wanted them to. And in one case, we took a percentage point step backward. The challenge we have in all of those things is to keep the press on to do the right thing. And so one of the things that I wanted to point out, Jennifer, if you'd go back to the second slide real quick, right after the purpose slide, and we ask you to think about this in this presentation, but also as we're talking about these with you over the next couple of meetings for this upcoming year. The way we've formatted these over the last 2 years and intend to continue to format these, you've adopted big, bold, transformational things as our priority statements. And you've actually said we want them so much that we want to see them in our strategic plan, which we're going to be talking more about tonight. And you'll see the thread that's pulled through strategic plan and all of this work moving forward. That will continue. The goal is how you specifically define success. And so, for example, in academic growth, the board's words were ensure positive, engaging experiences for every student that promote academic growth and ignite a passion for learning. So everything we plan and do is in pursuit of that. And we're working hard to make sure that that happens. But these key progress measures, and this is where I wanted to spend a little bit of time, there's a reason we formatted them as key progress measures and not key performance indicators. And the reason is there is transformational work that needs to be done in Arlington ISD, and some of that needs to be scripted in our behaviors that we have in our system. And so I bring you the wonderful book Switch, Chip Heath and Dan Heath, and one of the things that they talk about in there is the importance of actually marrying a big, bold vision, which you adopted as a board, in a very clear destination where you want to go, which you adopted as our goal statements, like that academic growth one that I just read. But what we also have to do, and why we have key progress measures formatted this way, is, in their words, what is essential, though, is to marry your long-term goal with short-term critical moves. You can have a compelling vision, but it would be empty talk without lots of behavioral level execution. So some of the KPMs that you see that we achieved this year were about changing behaviors in our system and about actions that we do, about completing specific tasks, because what we know from all of your trustee training and all of our administrative training is student outcomes don't change unless the behaviors of the adults in the system change. And so when we talk about key progress measures, our successes and a little bit of our disappointments over the course of the year, some of those successes that we can celebrate are steps along the way to change the behaviors in the classroom to lead to student changes in the future in outcomes. And others were about completion of tasks in order for us to take a step forward. That curriculum management audit that you approved a year ago, we did that deliberately as an action because we knew we needed it as a system. Every indicator was telling us that, so that's why we used it as a KPM. So as we're reflecting on this and discussing these tonight, I just wanted to reiterate why we went through the process that we did in being clear about what priority statements you wanted, what goals you had and how you articulated them, and what the purpose of key progress measures are. It's not only measuring an output in the system, but sometimes it has to be an input in order to change what we're doing to change the outcomes long term. So with that, we turn it over to y'all for any questions, discussions, or comments that you have on our KPM report for the 25-26 school.
Thank you, Dr. Smith and Dr. Collins. Do I have any trustees with questions or discussions about the KPM report? Trustee Fowler.
Thank you, President McMurrow. Great information, Dr. Collins. I think it was on slide 7A. Let's see. We've talked about life skills. I think I had the wrong. Had a little box to the right that had life skills. There we go. There, page 11, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Wanted to ask, what kind of life skills are we referring to there?
Yeah, so this is from the feedback that we received from our stakeholders when we asked them what do they want students to feel whenever they're in Arlington ISD, what do they want students to experience when they're in Arlington ISD, and what do they want students to be prepared for. So we had family members complete the survey, we had students themselves complete the survey, we had administrators and staff members complete the survey as well, and this is kind of what bubbled up from that, the idea of life skills for multiple pathways. So I think that it's broad and varied based on the age of our students, but I think that's something that we have to operationally define in our system. What will success look like for even feeling safe, valued, and included, right? I think all of these are kind of bigger ideas, and now it's going to be time through our strategic plan to figure out what are those life skills and where will they come to fruition within teaching and learning every day in our classroom and in our
Because
systems.
I think you would have to define them to know whether you can measure them.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fowler. Any other trustees with questions or discussion regarding the KPM report? Mr. Wilbanks?
Thank you, President McMurrow. And can we go to slide 10? So I do want to celebrate the success here, given two important key facts. So we're implementing a lot of change in the system, and we're doing it in tough budgetary times. So those have a pretty big significant damper on the ability to move this, does it not? And so I think for us to grow 1 point is significant given all the other necessary change that's having to happen across the system and what we're being asked of our staff. So the corporate culture or the institutional culture, I think every one of us still knows is a very important goal that we want to achieve in terms of improving that, because we need a great culture. Without a great culture, a lot of this change becomes impossible. And I think that this, the fact that we got a miss here, but I think it deserves an asterisk. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Dr. Collins, I just had one quick question of clarification. The two bar graphs with the A through F rating distribution from the first one, we're just looking at the campuses of focus and how those campuses turned out for 2026 projections. Is that right?
That's
okay.
Correct.
So if we look at this graph, it looks like our efforts paid off. But then the next chart where we're looking at in general, whole district, it looks like we did see improvement in the campuses that we were focused heavily on for our improvement efforts. But then when we zoom out and look at the whole district, we did see an uptick in our C-rated campuses especially. Can you guys just kind of touch on some of the efforts that all campuses are getting support so that because we have 76 campuses, and elementary schools are really where we see a lot of these ratings kind of fluctuating, right? Can you or Dr. Smith kind of share a big picture summary of the efforts that will be offered to those campuses, even if they are not already the heaviest support network? That makes sense.
I'll start us off and then you can jump in. So, the two things that come to mind right at the top of my mind are our focus on new mathematics, teaching and learning materials, and philosophy for teaching in the classroom. I believe that that's going to make a difference in our mathematics performance. I believe that our literacy focus as well, we're going to move from just are we doing it to how well are we doing it in the classroom, and I believe that that's going to make a difference. And so the supports for those things, which look like professional learning for all teachers, the idea of having these leadership teams focused on math for every campus and a leadership team focused on literacy for every campus, are really going to make a difference. But we also are working with each of our campuses to think about student and staff and parent surveys, and what is it that we can do to increase our partnerships and increase the satisfaction there. And so I believe by focusing on the culture and focusing on the academics that we're going to be able to see each of our campuses move.
I'll add, I think one of the things, if you, Jennifer, will you go back a slide? I'm missing my clicker up here, so I can't go back on my own. One of the things to point out, and I don't know if I would do it different or not. And I just need to be honest about that. We very heavily focused on the D and F campuses in a lot of our conversations this year. We have a challenge, we know, in a situation we know with a neighboring school district where if you don't get out of the D and F campus range, we've got a problem. And so a lot of our language and targeting was really about how do we address that this year. I don't know if we did well is made sure that we were constantly also talking about the schools that are on the margins. And we have to do that as well. It's not just, hey, because TEA says we've got to focus on D and Fs that we have to do that. We have to constantly talk about continuous improvement in every campus all the time. Because what we know based on our state accountability system and the demographics that through research shows our schools will be more heavily impacted by the state accountability system than other schools across the state. That is research proven. So we have to constantly work on not just some schools, but every school in our system. And that message has been clear with our principals this year. And I think some of our principals, there's a difference between getting to a letter grade and celebrating that letter grade and saying we can take our foot off the gas because we made that letter grade that we wanted, versus saying we got that letter grade and here's what we need to do next to take it to the next level. And I think we've really got to lean into that continuous improvement mindset even more with every campus, not just the ones that are sitting in the DNF rate.
Thank you both for that context. And I know part of the A through F formula is also maintaining growth. And so once you do hit that milestone rating, it's a big celebration. An additional challenge is you still have to maintain the rate of growth that keeps you at that threshold. And if you let up on growth, then that is inevitably going to impact your A through F rating for the following.
Can I add something on
Absolutely.
that? I appreciate you bringing that up because I'll use one example and I won't tell you what campus yet because we're still finalizing all these things. But what we're seeing in some of our data is we had a campus a couple of years ago that went from an F to a C and did great work. Mm-hmm. And this year, they actually improved in academic achievement. So their students were on the state test, quote, learning more, right? They were showing they're learning more, but yet they went back to a D on the accountability rating system. Why? Because the growth was so big the year before. And even though they grew this year, it wasn't as much as it was the year before that we slid backwards to a D rating. So we're having to constantly think about those things all the time and realizing that even though we saw improvement at that school this year, just because it wasn't as much improvement as it was the prior year, we see a letter grade slide back. And so those are the things that we're dealing with and working with on a regular basis. I appreciate you bringing that up because it's an important piece for us to point out.
Yes, and we are absolutely aware of all the hard work going on at the campus level. So hearing real stories like this, I mean, there's so many efforts that go into it, and that's one of the consequences of having a rating system such as this in our state is sometimes our campuses and our teachers, our staff, our everyone who cares about that campus, they look at that letter and there's so much more than just that rating. Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President McMurrow. All that discussion jogged a question for me. On the slide where we talk about the academic growth, implement structured literacy, research-based practices in all K through 3 literacy classrooms. We met the goal. It shows that we've got 100% compliance in using high-quality instructional materials. Given that we implemented it, it seems like so thoroughly across the system, do we have any objective data, whether that's from third grade STAR scores or some the assessments that we give K through 2, that this implementing the structured literacy practices helped us improve more than we have in the past?
I would say that our data doesn't show that yet, but also we didn't implement structured literacy in a whole at the very beginning of the school year. It was scaffolded in through the course of the school year during those professional learning days. So at the very beginning of the school year, the teachers learned the first step into structured literacy, and then were asked to implement that until the next professional learning session, where they learned a little bit more and were asked to carry that through in their classroom. And so by the end of the school year, structured literacy was being practiced in the classroom in a more robust way, but it really did grow over the course of the year. So I would say that we didn't yet see the data to show the growth. Another thing that we know that happened is we were looking for, are they using the materials, yes or no? Not how well are they using the materials in the classroom? And so as we went in and the observations, we were able to say, yeah, they're using the materials. And now where we are with them, because they've learned all of the different pieces of structured literacy, is now we're able to say, what can we do to improve the practice with these materials in the classroom? So we're hoping to see a big shift with our data this year.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
And I just thank you for this presentation. I know that there's a couple things that we didn't hit, but on the whole, even on the ones we didn't hit, we were definitely moving in the right direction. And while we didn't cut the number of DNF campuses by 50%, it was about 35%, which is really significant. And our net promoter scores continue to go up and are at really high levels. I always am impressed by the difference between what we hear about the perception of our district and public schools in general from some people, and what the net promoter scores we see both from our staff and our community are for us. And they're really sort of night and day stories where we seem to be doing really well with a lot of folks in our community. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. I agree, Mr. Chapa, with what you said, and I appreciate our board for tonight. Part of our consent agenda was the adoption of AE Local and EH Local, and we have to do our part in making sure these KPMs are met as a board. And so I think that those policies being put in place is absolutely going to support the academic outcomes that we're wanting to see. And referring back to the curriculum audit, that audit called for this policy to be reformed, and it took a while, but it was absolutely worth the time, the effort. And so kudos to Trustee Haynes, Trustee Richardson. Our governance committee really took on the legwork, but our whole board owns it. So I want to thank each of y'all, because I feel proud of that policy, and I know that it's going to yield even better academic outcomes as we move into the future. Thank you, Dr. Collins.
Sure.
I failed to I want to go back to the open forum for agenda items. I don't believe we have any speakers, but I just want to cover that. Ms. Crossno, do we have any speakers for agenda items tonight?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Back to reports. Our next report is on the 2026-2027 Strategic Plan Report. Dr. Smith.
I'll just let Dr. Collins go ahead since she's still standing there.
Awesome. So I'm going to let the team at the back get us to the right place on the slides. In your hands, you should have a copy of our strategic plan. We're calling it Strategic Plan at a Glance, and we are very, very excited about it. We know that this is not perfect yet, but we feel like it's a pretty strong prototype of what we want our strategic plan document to look like. So we're going to walk through that this evening. And again, these are our goals for 26 through 2030. As a reminder, as we think about improvement planning here in Arlington ISD, we start with our vision statement. And board, I wish that you could have been a part of some of the learning opportunities that we've had with our new to district staff, with our principals over the last few days, and really grounding our work in the vision statement. It's been really impactful, and it really was transformational as we thought about our strategic plan. And then we leaned into our values and beliefs and district priorities, and you'll see all of that captured in the strategic plan. And then as a reminder, the strategic plan is that 5-year goal of what it is that we want to accomplish in our system. And then we have DIP and SIP action plans, our district improvement plans and campus improvement plans, that are the 1-year goals moving forward. And then again, those KPMs like we were just looking at this evening. So all of that put together is how we think about improvement planning here in Arlington. As we think about the timeline, our strategic plan timeline started way back in January of 2025. We were all there together having lots of fun, kicking off that work. And we started with a strategic planning process. We had some workshops together as a team. In the spring of 2025, we really leaned into gathering input from community. You'll remember we had some community meetings. We sent out surveys to our community and to some our families and our staff members to gather their thoughts and ideas. Then it was in the fall of 2025 that we made a decision as a cabinet team, and then a recommendation as a cabinet team and board. You solidified our idea to really ground our strategic plan in our district priorities rather than in those original buckets that we were thinking about, and that really transformed the goals and allowed us to really align our vocabulary and to align our thinking with our strategic plan. And so then in the spring of 2026, we were able to talk with you guys about some of those strategic objectives and where we were planning to head together as a cabinet team. On April 9th, we had a workshop together focused on the strategic plan. And so since then, we've taken your feedback. Our communications team has worked to imagine what a strategic plan document could look like. And so that's what we're presenting to you this evening. So again, we're calling this like an at-a-glance format. We want it to be accessible. We want it to be public-facing. And we want to ensure that help everyone in the community to see how aligned we are on our district direction. This will also be on websites and those kinds of things that will be a little bit more interactive, but we like the idea of having something quick and easy for someone to be able to digest. So I'm going to walk you through some of the content. So as we were planning together about what should be included, we knew we needed to have our vision statement, our values and beliefs, our district priorities, our strategic objectives. We wanted to have something about the plan development so that when someone got this in their hands, they knew where it came from and how the goals were written. We wanted to have some iconography. That was something that you guys talked about whenever we met together and looked at strategic plans from other districts, that you liked the idea of just some quick snapshots of data from our district. And then the idea of how to connect with our district, if that was something that someone wanted to do. And then a little bit of information, of course, about our Board of Trustees and the work that you guys do to help us move forward with this work. So on the front cover, one of the things that you'll notice is that we feature our Arlington ISD students and our Arlington ISD teachers. So for a long time here in Arlington ISD, we use stock photos, and no longer are we using stock photos. We're excited to have our own students and our own staff members featured. You'll notice some of the features with, like, some of the raised, glossy kinds of things. So we want it to be appealing, and we want things to pop. You'll see a current representation of our community and our partnerships. I'll have you open it up for just a minute, and you'll see like a picture of a girl in a Cowboys t-shirt right there. So it doesn't, like, it's not a picture of Rowdy. Like, we're not trying to say we love the Dallas Cowboys, but instead we're trying to highlight some of the partnerships that we have. So all of the photos were picked very intentionally for this document. Whenever you first open it up, what you'll notice is the plan development. We want people to be able to read the story of how the strategic plan was developed, and then to have that vision statement right in front of them. I love the way that we've bolded some of the words in the vision statement. As we spent time with teachers and administrators over the last few days, we've used a graphic that looks very similar to this, and it really does help it to kind of be chunked and be a little bit more comprehensible. And then whenever you open it all the way up, this is what you will see. And so beginning over on the left, we have Arlington ISD at a glance. You'll see that iconography there. You'll see the values and beliefs, which we believe are so important. So it's not just what we want to do, but how we want to do it in our system. And then you'll see our district priorities and those goal statements, as well as our strategic objectives for our strategic. And then on the back center, what you'll notice, of course, is a picture of our trustees. Trustee Haynes, we do see a typo there on that, and so something that we've already noted. And then a way that people can get in contact with us in the district, or if they're interested in following us on social media accounts, that QR code will take them directly to our district. So again, this is a prototype, and I am here to, listen to your feedback about what this looks like, and we will work together to make sure that we have a strategic plan that you guys are excited to be able to share with others in our community to tell our story.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. Any questions or discussion about the strategic plan report?
I do have to point out those bold words on the vision statement. So I was working with new teachers the other day, and I put our vision statement up there, and I used a slide just like that, and I asked them to pick out the most important words in the vision statement to them. And I hear one of our new teachers go, well, obviously it's the bold words. So they do they do play a role in making sure that people see those things, but I think that they get the important message that you all wanted to send too, about that we're trying to create something exceptional for every student in our school district, and we do that through inspiring, empowering, and preparing kids, and we can do it together, and not just for some kids, but for all kids. So it was a really good conversation to have on that, but I do want to give our team kudos for the way that was laid out. I think that's gone very well. And again, this is just a report right now, so if you do have any input that you would like to give us before we bring a final version and have you adopt that final version, please let us know.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. And I was able to see Dr. Smith and Dr. Collins address the new teachers. And even though, yes, your eyes go to the bold words, I was so enlightened by the conversations that I got to listen into. And I was touched that a lot of our teachers, they zoomed in, as well as you, Dr. Smith, on the word all. And each and every student, we all have the collective belief that all kids can learn. And Dr. Smith asked the whole room, do you believe that all kids can learn? And it was awesome to see a room of new to Arlington ISD teachers, new to the profession. You could just feel the energy and the collective belief. And it made me feel, as a trustee, just so inspired that this is the new cohort of teachers that we are putting in front of our students. So that was an awesome address. Thank you for that, Dr. Smith.
One thing I do want to point out is you're looking at this over the next few days and stuff. If you would really take a look, those strategic objectives in there are the ones you gave us a thumbs up on in the spring, said we want those to be our strategic objectives through the course of that plan, is where it begin talking at the next meeting and the following meeting after that about adopting key progress measures. You will see the alignment in what we propose to you all to those strategic objectives. So I ask you to really think about those strategic objectives and what you believe you want us to accomplish over the next year. Remember, a key progress measure is something on an annual basis that we want to accomplish. But the whole purpose of laying out this strategic plan like this is to make sure we have alignment from the boardroom through the district improvement plan, the campus improvement plans, and what we're doing in the classroom. And we've made great strides in getting there over the past.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any other discussion or questions about strategic plan? All right, thank you, Dr. Collins. We will now move on to the Proposition C report. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I would like to invite Dr. Hill up to the podium tonight. As you know, in our last meeting in June, we had a discussion with you about options for Proposition C, which Michael will walk through again very briefly. And we want to have some discussion. This is where we absolutely need your input tonight. There's some pending timelines that we have. Should the board want to do something by a November election, this is the time that we actually have to do it by mid-August in order to do that. So Michael will walk through some of the options that we have, some of the feedback that you gave us the last time, and some things for you to consider. And tonight we do ask for some input from you on our next steps, because if we have to turn something around for a November election, it actually has to be by the next board meeting when we meet. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hill to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Dr. Smith and President McMurrow on the board. Again, appreciate the opportunity to be here again to talk about this. Again, the purpose is to provide you with the details and the projects included in Prop C of the most recent bond election, which was not approved by voters, and then talk about some of the options. This exact presentation was made to you at the June 16th meeting, and so I won't go into as much detail as I did at that point. But again, Prop C, which was not approved, was $31.5 million roughly, and the other two were approved. Things that are included in Prop C, which was basically an athletic proposition, were broken into 9 different categories, including MAC, synthetic turf, resurfacing tracks, scoreboards, and synthetic turf on baseball and softball fields, event mat replacement, weight room replacement, equipment, athletic storage buildings, and things of the like. Just a little bit of detail. I won't go into much detail, but as we talk about the Proposition C with the MAC turf, those turf surfaces are projected to have about an 8 to 10 year lifespan, and we're right up on that lifespan now as they're part of the 2014 bond. We did GMAX testing, which is the how compact those surfaces are, and all of them are reaching that 165 kind of average of where they become no longer useful for their intended purposes. So we're ending that, nearing that position. We talked about softball and baseball field turf and what that life expectancy is and what we would be able to do versus a natural grass surface if they were there. We also talked about resurfacing tracks to the tune of about $2 million at 8 of our junior highs. Again, those tracks are built to last 8 to 12 years, and we're nearing that 10-year average on there where the wear and tear is really beginning to show. We talked about field event, mat replacement, and athletic storage again to replace those long jump pits, pole vault pits, and things that are out there, and then to possibly get some storage to actually get them in and out of the elements to extend the life of those. They're anywhere from 8 to 10 years that we could extend the life on them with that storage building. Prop C scoreboard replacement about $500,000. Again, they're expected to last 10 to 15 years, and the ones that we have are if they're not there, they're really nearing that life expectancy of them. A lot of repairs, a lot of work orders on that are stacking up on those scoreboards. Weight room equipment, we actually, in some of our junior highs, we actually have weight room equipment that's not safe, and we've kind of pushed it to the side and or trying to get it out of the way because, again, it's expected to last 8 to 12 years. And in some cases, it's 20 to 25 years old, and it's really beyond its life expectancy. So we're just taking it out of service in order to make sure kids safety is not being jeopardized. Wrestling mat replacement, same thing, 8 to 12 year expectancy. We have some that's almost 16 years old, and that's a lot of grind and sweat and all that on those mats. And so we try to do our very best job that we can disinfecting them and cleaning them and drying them and things like that, but just the life expectancy is there, and it's nearing that time. And so at our June 16th, that's a mistype there, June 16th board meeting discussion, we had a lot of discussion about investing heavily in athletic facilities in past bonds. The community has been committed to doing that and done a great job. We also talked about some mixed options consideration. We talked a lot about potential use for 2019 interest earnings to protect current facility current facility investments for student use, specifically the MACs, the junior high track resurfacing, track and field events, junior high weight rooms, and the MAC turf. And there was a lot of conversation about student safety and how can we ensure that we keep students safe while providing them with these opportunities with these first-class facilities. Other discussion at that meeting were a possible November bond election or a future date to address softball and baseball turf. And we actually talked about some next generation athletic facility needs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Talked about the cost of a November bond election, which we've done some research on, and we kind of have some preliminary numbers of what that might be. We talked about the concern of the success with November bond elections statewide. Athletic bond elections have struggled statewide, and we had that conversation. We're concerned with use of excess interest earnings when the voters said no to Prop C in the most current election. We had that discussion. We had discussion about recommendations from the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and how that aligned with what some of these issues are. And the last thing we talked about was addressing some of the campus needs through with the Facility Condition Index using some 2019 interest earnings. And so I've kind of worked with the superintendent and kind of come up with some potential options for us to discuss. One being just take no action at all. We are where we are. The other is potentially taking Prop C as is back to the community for consideration with a more targeted campaign in a November election or at some other future election. Option 3, we could consider some revisions and or additions to Prop C and taking it back to the community at a November or more future or further future election. And that revisions could be outdoor sports complexes, indoor sports complexes to add into Prop C to give it a little bit more tenor for what the community might have a taste for. And then option 4, consider addressing the critical needs in Prop C by using some interest earnings from 2019. Right now we have between 38 and 45 million that we're projected to have, and that could fluctuate based on certain factors that our CFO could help us understand. But some of those critical needs could be the MAC turf in the MAC centers, resurfacing junior high tracks to field mats, scoreboard replacements, replacement of weight room equipment at junior highs, and replacing wrestling mats at the 6 high schools. So here are some options for us to consider to address these critical needs that were not approved in the Prop C. And we'll have some discussion. And as Dr. Smith said, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Any trustees with questions or discussion regarding the Proposition C projects? Trustee Fowler.
Thank you, President McMurrow. Dr. Hill, if we didn't use or the interest earnings, if we did not use them for things that were that were voted down, what kinds of things could we use the interest earnings for?
So, and I will let CFO come help me if I speak out of term here, but in this most recent bond election, it was the one where the money had to be spent on the different propositions. It's my understanding that 2019 bond and all that money, what we call golden pennies, and we can use it on anything. It doesn't have to be prop specific from the 2019. Oh, hey, I passed.
So
Spot on.
I'll add on to that just real briefly. You as a board have the ability to take action using bond interest earnings and use them on projects that you see fit if it aligned with the 2019 bond. And so because that proposition was wide and addressed so many areas in the district, you have a lot of leeway on how to use that. And so some of these things, like if you used all of the interest earnings to just pass Prop C or just take care of the Prop C projects, you would use up all of those interest earnings pretty much, right? And so you wouldn't be able to do things like address a campus that is in need of interior repair that you might want to do as a board of trustees, or other additional projects. One of Mr. Horn's probably going to talk to you about later tonight as well. Our CBOC went through all of their recommendations and gave you some options to use that money as well. So my point is, if you use that all for Prop C, all those other things go away, and you don't have the ability to do that. I will say this, it's important to remember two things about this, and I can say these things because we don't have an election going on right now, but we lost that proposition by about 700 votes. That means 350 people, if you had changed their vote, or we'd better educated people, we could have gotten that across the line, right? And one thing that came out loud and clear at the end of this is I don't know that some of the people who voted for or against Proposition C realized that that was zero impact on the tax dollars for them because they voted yes to Proposition A, which was the bulk of our bond propositions for them to consider. So I think those are important things for the board to consider. As a superintendent, I think that we can piece some of these things together. We can use some interest earnings from 2019 to do some critical projects and take this out to the voters again with a little bit different flavor, and maybe do that in May of 2027 if y'all like. There's a lot of ways for us to go about this, but the important one for us to stress is if as a board you want us to turn around and hold an election in November, we've got critical deadlines that we actually have to hit in mid-August in order to do that. And so that's the purpose of our conversation.
Would it be a good idea if we kind of rank of the things that Proposition C was going to bring? Could we rank, what are the most important things and use some of the money for that, and then save some of the money for projects that we might need on campuses? We might think about doing that, kind of ranking them, what's the most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President McMurrow. I kind of said this at the last meeting when we walked through this. I think in my mind there's a distinction between the projects that were in Prop C over things that would have been new that for various reasons would have been really good for us to have, even probably saved us some money in the long run. I mean, I know folks look at the turf on the softball and baseball fields as sort of a luxury thing to do, but for all the reasons we explained, made a lot of sense in reducing especially staff time, maintaining it, freeing up time for coaches. I think the baseball field alone would have saved us about $1 million a year in water costs. And so, there's some intangibles there that were hard to communicate. And I can tell you from working the polls during the election, a lot of people saw the ballot language, which we're constrained in doing, and saw athletic facilities, and they just assumed it's stadiums. And people are really upset about, stadiums right now. And so there's those types of projects. And then there's the projects that, as you identified, we've already paid for them. We have these facilities. They were paid for with prior bonds, and we have to maintain them in some way. And so I don't think the community, first, as Dr. Smith, it's a very narrow vote. And these have been failing pretty massively across the state. I mean, the fact that we were so narrow, I think, speaks really well of the effort to try to communicate with the community about it. But I don't think the community in shooting down the very broad language in Prop C and the various things that were in that proposition that were not listed specifically was telling us not to maintain the facilities that we have. And I mean, because some of these we can't put grass inside the max. That turf, so we're going to have to do something with that eventually, or we're not going to be able to use them. So in my mind, there's a distinction between those types of projects where we've got 25-year-old junior high weight rooms where really we should be looking at replacing them every 10 to 15 years. And I don't think the community is sending us that message. We do have the bond interest earnings from the 19 bond that I would, to Ms. Fowler's idea of prioritizing, like to see the interest money used on those things. And in my mind, the priority is sort of what you outlined. It's the things that's beyond their lifespan. It's about to hit it pretty soon. We're close to failing certain structural tests that we know once we reach that point, it's going to be too late to put together a bond package and hope that gets done. I think there's that. I would want to know more about what might go into another bond proposition that's focused on athletics, whether that's the softball, baseball fields plus something else or just those two. I would say, though, without more information on what that looks like, I don't know tonight whether I'm prepared to say we should go out for it. I would just say, having been involved in these for a while, for 3 different bonds now, trying to educate voters. If we're going to do it and thinking that we're going to educate voters on why this is a good idea, in my mind, a November 2026 election is a really hard sell, because for us to be able to it's hard enough to communicate with the electorate we have in May, which is where us, the city, are generally the only things on the ballot. And that's our shot of doing an education campaign. Doing it in a presidential election year with that big old long ballot and all the atmospherics around it, I think we shouldn't go into it thinking, well, if we just do a better job educating folks, that it might get it across the line, because it's going to be significantly harder to cut through and educate in a November presidential election. So that would just be my caution on that. Governor. Sorry.
Governor.
I don't know what year it is. I have 3 kids. So given the options that are here, I would lean towards an option 4, and then, I would want more information on option 2 or 3. I don't think taking no action for us, even in the short run, is an option based on the information you've provided. I do have one question, though, on the on the GMAC scores. Our averages are, we've got almost all of them are getting close on their maximum ratings of hitting the 165, but their average ratings are to varying degrees still a bit below that. How much does that GMAX average vary, or how much does it go up each year?
And I think it depends on use. And so how compact it is, how much the band kids and the soccer kids and the football player, how much compaction is happening every year. And again, they measure probably 12 to 14 spots over the entire space, and then they take an average of those. And so if coaches are really focused in one area and that's where they're doing the workout out, then it's going to get more compaction there. And so it just varies.
Okay. All right. So, but it's not necessarily a thing where it's like the GMAX score at all of our schools are increasing so rapidly that like we have to do something immediately.
I wouldn't say that, but it's something that we really got to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, President McMurrow. Look, I'm not a sagacious political consultant, but I do know, as some of the points Mr. Chapa made, going out in November is hard. in any time period. Now, you might say that this one's a different environment with a lot of different dynamic, bringing out different voters. Maybe it'll pass, but it's a very short runway, and it's been stated we've got an education campaign on our hand, and we don't have a lot of runway for a campaign like that. And also, given the fact that it is so noisy in this election with the Senate races and the governor's races, thank God it's not a presidential. But, you know, I go back to when Justin and I were part of the TRE, which is now called a VA TRE. It barely passed in a November election. And we really worked hard to try to educate the voters on why we needed to pass that for our teachers. And I don't want to relive that. So I would be very hesitant, even if we had a political consultant come in and say, oh, this one's going to be different. The fact that the statistics for athletic propositions are bad, but they're really bad in November. So that leaves me to leaning into option 4. I do have a question, though. I'm pretty sure I remember the answer to this, Mr. Horn, but we are, Dr. Smith, you know, those MACs were built with the 2014 bond, and, you know, we had some excess bond funds, but but I pretty much, that's Wells out. There's no more excess bonds funds from 2014, right? No.
2014, no.
Yeah, no. Okay. So that leaves us with using what we can with option 4, but I really would like to look at option 3 and bring in a sagacious political consultant who knows about Texas athletic propositions and what we need to do to maximize that. I've talked to a few at a few conferences, and I think we should really just put together a strong plan to go out in probably May or a May election and kind of lean on option 4 as we get our ducks in a row.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Haynes.
Thank you. So when you presented in June, I had a lot to say on this. It's pretty much the same info, so I just really want to weigh in on where I'm at with the options you brought. Unfortunately, since the proposition didn't pass, I do think as trustees we are entrusted and have a responsibility to step up and fill the gaps where we know maintenance is expected for the experiences that we want for our students. And so I definitely think we need to take action on using 2019 excess funds to take care of the items that are deemed maintenance and necessities to be, upkept. I am also interested in going out for another bond because I do think there are needs that weren't met. I don't know that needs to happen immediately, but I definitely would support exploring that.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. Mike.
Thank you. I don't know where my head is at. I also believe that there are some issues that we had to scale back for the 2019 bond, or some issues that were scaled back due to inflation or certain items like that. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
And so I guess what I'm saying, to get to the point where I can fully understand this, I would like to see if there are any other critical issues that are present before I fully commit to an option 4. Because there may be some other things that affect the students where we have to look into as well. But right now I'm teeter-tottering between 3 and 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Any other trustees with questions or discussion regarding the options for Prop C projects? So as you guys have been sharing, I've been just kind of taking notes and seeing what it's, even though we're not taking action tonight, as Dr. Smith mentioned, we do want to see what we can calibrate around, because if there were to be a November election that we need to put together, this is especially timely. I did not, and please push your button if I misheard anyone, but I did not get any indication that there's interest in going out for a November bond election for any of these projects. And I know we did discuss it, Dr. Hill, as you mentioned at the June meeting, and I mentioned it then, but I do want to also echo, I'm not interested in a November election, especially as Mr. Wilbanks mentioned, under the conditions that we would be. We talked last time, I can't remember who said it, but in our June meeting, someone said something that really stuck with me. What does it say to the community if we take monies from the 2019 excess bond and fund propositions that the community do not support? And that really stuck with me. But at the same time, as Trustee Haynes and others mentioned, we have to take into account student safety. And Mr. Chapa, you mentioned that there were a lot of people at the polls that just in our discussions with them, we picked up on how there was some misinformation, but there was also misinformation. And I don't think safety is something that a lot of folks see the necessity of these projects, but the wrestling mats, the turf, a lot of this does relate to student safety, the safety of our athletes, the safety of all students who use these facilities at all of our schools. So that's something that, like you mentioned, Ms. Haynes, that's our responsibility as a board. So that's what makes this especially challenging. I tend to favor, and this is where I would ask Dr. Smith, and feel free to help me kind of imagine what this would look like. I would love for our athletic staff and our senior staff and our cabinet to, the word that comes to mind is prioritize, but perhaps help us discern what is most urgent in regards to student safety and what could be rolled in to a future election, but not a November election. What could make it into perhaps a May 27 or a future bond election, but what is a necessity and what is timely so that we can protect student safety with what wasn't approved in our most recent bond. So how would that look, and is this something that we think could be feasible?
So I'll jump in real quickly, and Dr. Hill, help me out along the way here, but you see some bullets under option 4. And I believe that those were some of those safety concerns that were brought up in the June meeting that we discussed. So what you see there totals, I think maybe if I'm doing it off the top of my head real quickly, $9 million or so. It does not expend the entire amount of bond interest earnings that you had from the 2019 bond. But those are the items that I think you brought up in the June meeting that we would consider, yeah, those are probably some safety issues that we think need to be looked at. What we can do is we can build off of that, go back to the entire Prop C and make sure we didn't miss anything and bring that back to you all for consideration. But I wanted to point out, it might look to you all when you see option 4, it says between 38 and 45 million. That's not what we're saying there. That's the bond interest earnings that you have the ability to subtract some of those projects from. Those projects that are listed there only total about 9 million, I think, if I'm doing the math right real quickly. So you do have the ability to address those safety items and still have some of that money, as Trustee Mike said, to be able to address other issues that you know as a school district we might need to address. What we can do, I think, based on your feedback from this evening, is we can make sure, given that our timelines aren't urgent, that we don't have any input from y'all to go out for a November election, we can come back to you in August or September and say, here are the ones that, based on athletic department input and senior staff input, here are the ones that we think are important for y'all to consider using our bond interest earnings from 2019 on, and you all would have to take action in order to do. And then we can make a decision from there about putting together, using some sagacious experts, as Mr. Wilbanks said. We can bring some experts in and really talk about what might be needed or thoughtful for the future and how we might go back out to the community to address some of the other items that were in there. I think Mr. Chopper brought up a really important point. All of those things in there, we heard some feedback from people saying they were luxury items, but we weren't doing it for luxury items. We're actually doing it to get kids more playing time on baseball and softball fields and stuff like that, and to save some staff time and effort in maintaining fields, and for a whole lot of reasons, including getting the community on our fields more often. So I think there's a lot of things that we could consider should you want to put a bond election up for, say, May of 27, with just a few items on there that could be those things that weren't addressed, and also a few other items to consider moving forward. We can get those experts in to help us plan that out and talk to you more about that over the course of the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Any other trustees with final questions or discussion regarding Prop C project? All right, seeing none, we will move on to action items. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
you.
Dr. Smith. Oh, sorry. First action item. We will consider approval of relocation and construction of South Davis Elementary replacement to 1203 West Pioneer Parkway, Arlington, Texas 76013. Dr. Smith.
Mr. Horn is coming up tonight to talk to you a little bit about this. I think for our board, you might go, well, we thought this was done. We actually bought property in order to do this. But I think it's important to make sure we're really clear with the community as well. Should you decide to move the location of that replacement school, it does require a board act.
President McMurray, members of the board, Dr. Smith, thank you. So this is an exciting time because we've talked and planned for a long time about the South Davis replacement. And if you recall, we preserved that location that was our former JW Accounts Administration Building at 1203 West Pioneer Parkway. Following the closure of that building just in the past year and a half, we raised that structure. And then, if you recall, you authorized us to go out and procure an additional 1.7 acres from Fielder Church for just about $500,000 to increase the size of that property so that we could support an elementary school. So I asked for our architects to develop just a visual for you so that you could see the proximity of this school. By having a parcel of land that close, it allows us to make that or build that campus while we're still in the other campus, right? Both campuses are very similar in size. The South Davis property that we occupy today is just a bit over 10 acres. And you can see here, it's about 0.4 miles. That's roughly 4 blocks away. And most of you know exactly what it is because you've driven to the old admin building site many times and driven by South Davis. So we wanted to kind of give you an idea of just how close it is. This would really not change much of anything if we built here versus stayed on the other property. Staying on the other property, though, that does create some challenges, right, when you're replacing a campus. But bus routes stay relatively the same, and it's still a neighborhood school. And so, and we do have a nice piece of property there that we can utilize for a campus and do some really, really nice things to that campus to make sure that it's safe and it's accessible. That I'll turn it over for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Any trustees with questions or discussion regarding the South Davis Elementary potential school site? Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, President McMurray. You mentioned that there could be issues if we rebuilt on the present day South Davis. What are some of those issues?
That's just simply, when you make a replacement campus and you're going to build on that campus, then we would have to relocate students during that construction period to other campuses. And sometimes that may be 1 or 2, just depending upon how many students we have in nearby campuses. But it would be or feel like what we had to endure when we had Peach and McNutt not open on time, and we were busing kids from that location to nearby campuses really all over the district. So that's the thing. You need a campus that is either underutilized or not utilized at all to be able to shift those students during the time that you raise the existing structure and rebuild the new.
And that plan worked really well with Webb.
It did. It worked out exceptionally well with Webb because it was very similar to this, not on the same exact property, but we literally built the school while the kids went to the existing Webb campus, and then we just transferred them over. Actually, that was a mid-year transfer but it worked out really well because it was so close.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Trustee Fowler. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, President McMurrow. Mr. Horn, you mentioned that, I mean, just looking at this, the proposed site looks like it has several advantages over the existing site. I know the terrain of the old site was heavily sloped.
Right.
And there's not much room for ingress and egress into or for a dedicated bus lane.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, I assume we have a cut in with the new fielder
We do.
onto Pioneer.
Yes, sir.
And then the old one that was on the side would still be utilized possibly, as well as that road that goes into the back.
Columbine. Yes, sir. That you're correct. And we did strategically procure that property for that purpose to get that curb cut off of 303 or Pioneer Parkway. And so that's a very valuable asset for us. And you're correct. It does give us, it's on a hard corner, obviously, but it does work well for us. We would still have to do some things off of 303, likely build a decel lane just to allow traffic to safely exit off of 303 and onto the property, but that's not unusual. We have to do that from time to time.
Yeah, and, you know, thinking of kids from the neighborhoods from the north that are on the east side of Davis, is there existing sidewalk on the west side of Davis?
On the west side of Davis, I don't know. I don't believe we have that, but we would be required to do that in constructing a new school. So there would be when we finish.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President McMurrow. This has been a long time coming.
It has.
And so I'm glad that it's finally here. And I think the most surprising thing about this is in my mind that 0.4 miles seems like a further than that seems. You know, when you're at South Davis, it's right around the corner. There's a lot of things I like about the existing site being, you know, right next to the park, being more in the middle of the neighborhood. There's a sizable apartment community. You can kind of see there on the picture to that would be the east side that, you know, students can just go across the park and they're right there at school. But the site just has so many challenges, I think, with with what we will be required to do on a rebuild with how, you know, when we did that at Crow and we had to put in the lanes around Crow and it was a big challenge squeezing a lane through where a house was. It just makes sense to move it, especially when you take into account that the kids would have to go, a lot of kids, it's like 600 plus kids would have to go somewhere else for a year and a half. It just makes sense to move it. The only question I have is do you anticipate the sizable electrical lines that go across the 1203 West Park Pioneer property posing any specific challenges to the build?
No, we would, this campus likely would be a two-story campus like we've been building recently. And we've done some things already, some preliminary planning. We're going to bring you that in a few short weeks for you to be able to see SD for this particular campus that we put here, we proposed to put here. And so those lines, the Encore has done a lot to actually change that. If you recall, they used to be the big A-frame style, very structural looking member, and they've gone to more just the monopole type setup. And so they've done a lot to change those high lines and kind of squeeze their package. It hasn't changed the footprint, at least their easement, but we've already been able to lay out a preliminary design to make sure that it fits and work through that. And we can certainly cross under or across their easement. We already do onto Columbine. And we have a good working relationship with Encore, and we have had to do things like that before. Even like at Wildman, we've utilized part of that aerial or the ground easement underneath their aerial lines. So I don't believe we'll have any problems. We'll probably have more issues with just relocating some of the underground utilities more than worried about the overhead.
Okay, and it doesn't look like it from, you know, just this overhead schematic that we have here, but do you anticipate any substantial disruption to those homes more on the west side of the property, the northwest side of the property, that those residential neighbors are going to be affected in any substantial way? No, sir. In fact, some of the planning we've looked at already preliminarily really drives the traffic in and off of Davis and off of 303 more so. We'll still be coming in off Columbine, but everything we have to do now, the city works hard to make sure that we have traffic off of the streets, and so
as you've seen with Berry and other schools, we end up with a lot of driveway around campuses, but our architects are very good about making sure that they're efficient with their designs, and I think fine.
Okay. And the only other question I have is, what is the anticipated timeline of completion?
Well, that's, like I said, we're going to bring you something in the next, not this next meeting, but on the 27th, we'll bring you SD, hopefully, for this particular campus. And then it's a very accelerated timeline Dr. Smith has challenged me with, but we're going to make it, and we're looking at August of 28. That's our anticipated. If everything goes well, and we're fortunate with weather, that's when we'll open. If we have some sort of delay, we still have the ability, just like with Webb, we could possibly look at falling back to mid-year. And with the proximity, you wouldn't have that big an issue with changing during the winter time period like we did with Webb. But we're going to go after August 2028, right?
Okay.
I did tell Mr. Horn that some of you might say, what about January of 27? And so they do know the urgency. One of the things that I appreciate about Kelly is he's working hard to make sure some of these things are turned around as quick as possible. And in meeting with some of the people so far as we're developing some of these preliminary things, one of the things I've assured them all is we want to do it. We want to do it quickly. We also want to do it right.
That's right.
So I can guarantee you they'll be bringing you a proposal to try and meet both of those things, because we want to turn this building around quickly for that community.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Any other trustees with questions or discussion? I just want to say I know that our capital needs steering committee, when we were discussing South Davis replacement, new site, we actually, aside from the traditional meetings, we had a bus tour, and a lot of people had previously visited South Davis, and a lot of the committee knew that we had already acquired that land. And through that committee, through my conversation with a lot of the people who were involved with our 2026 bond scope, I did not hear any adverse opinions, and that includes parents, for this move. We've owned the property, and we are not supposed to own property that we as a board do not see a future facility use for. Not only is this 4 blocks away, but it's still within the neighborhood. It will not disrupt the transportation, and it will not disrupt where the students physically attend school while the facility is being built. And I do remember the Webb Elementary transition. The students got to literally watch their new school brick by brick, and that really built anticipation. Things did not go according to the original plan, and they had to move into their new school a little bit later, but that did not disrupt anything because the old school was still there. And so I saw that happen. I saw that it was very seamless for the school, for the neighborhood, and I know that this would be very similar of a situation. So with that, I just want to say I do support this move. I'm really excited that we can do this while still staying within the neighborhood, because South Davis is a very old school, and it's a generational school. It's very special, but this site is going to be more conducive to what we want to do, and it's going to be safer, it's better terrain, and that's another benefit. So with that, we'll move to vote since this is an action item. Trustees, is there a motion, or does anyone want to make a motion to approve the relocation and construction of the new South Davis replacement elementary school? A motion by Trustee Fowler. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Wilbanks. We will now move to vote. Thank you, trustees. The motion passes unanimously. Okay. Up next, we will consider approval of the schematic design of the 18+ program additions and renovations project at the current site of Blanton Elementary as part of the 2026 bond program. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I won't belabor this. The title says it all. But as you know, this was another one of those projects that was passed in the May 2026 bond election. It is a really important piece of the puzzle for us as a school district. There's some exciting things that we're going to talk about in this tonight, and we might actually have some of our other staff members join us along the way that don't know this yet, but I might surprise said staff member in just a second and ask her to talk a little bit about a piece of this puzzle, but I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Certainly. So we've wasted no time in getting started, and you might wonder just how we did this, right? But I'll remind you, and you're going to see this in a slide that I'm going to talk to in a bit, but we always put future design dollars in a bond program. And so we had future design dollars in the 2019 bond program so that we could do just what we're doing today, which is get an early jump on projects so that our citizens can see their dollars at work, right? And for exciting projects like the 18 Plus Center. So tonight, I'm not going to present all of this. I'm going to have our architect do that. And so I've invited Marty Sims with VLK to come, and he's going to walk through the plan, and I'll pick up the slide here in a bit.
Very good. Advance with the pictures. Fantastic. Well, we're thrilled to present the schematic design for the 18 Plus Center, the Blanton site. This is a project that is going to be real special, we believe. We've had the privilege to work on a number of these across the state of Texas, a couple of which I think some of the members of the administration were able to tour, and that's provided us with some great feedback along the way, and a great jumping point to kind of see how some of those things might apply or not apply to your goals with this facility. The idea with this facility is that we're going to be supporting the prepping students for their adult life and making sure that we're giving them all of the programs that were include the ability to provide a community work opportunity, community engagement opportunity, and preparation for their adult lives. So from a schedule standpoint, we've just completed schematic design. And you're going to see some images that look fairly put together, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to make changes, and this design will continue to evolve. It is early in the design process, but we are moving quick. The goal would be we would have documents out in the first couple months of the next year, with the goal also for an August 28 open at this point. So if you guys are familiar with the Blanton site, what you see in the hatched area represents the portion of the building. The red is the portion of the building we're looking at removing, right? So we're raising that portion of the red. The hatched is the portion of the building which represents the two newest additions, right? So as we're analyzing the existing building, we thought, the two newest additions are probably worth looking at potentially saving. Obviously, it's less expensive to renovate space than it is to build new, and that's certainly money that then we could funnel into the remainder of the additional scope that we're adding with the additions in white. And so you'll see there's the classroom wing that runs kind of left, right to the top, and we'll get in detailed slides of all of these. But and then the library portion will be saved, but the remainder will be additions. The red will be removed. What this also allows us to do is to pull the building back from Collins. As you guys are familiar with that, there's a pretty steep hill coming off of Collins. There's some drainage issues that creates. This gives us the room to fix some of those issues, those drainage issues, and really an opportunity to create a completely new facade to the public way there. When we're done with this, the building will not, it won't retain any of the existing character of the existing building. It will be a completely new facility, although a portion of it is reused. We're looking at utilizing as much of the new infrastructure as possible as far as site amenities. So there's a bus drive that's fairly new across the north end of the site. That would remain. We'll be providing a new drive for parents and access to the public and semi-public semi-public areas to the center. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I also want to point out that we've got some exterior amenities to the back end of the site, pickleball, basketball courts. There's also an outdoor classroom, greenhouse, and orchard and garden. And so, again, looking for opportunities to engage the students of this facility in ways that also engage the community. So the area that you see kind of the main entry there, so there's a secure vestibule like you have in many of your facilities or all of your facilities that have students, but we're also looking at incorporating a cafe and a spirit shop that could be open to the public with outward-facing doors manned by the students. There's a fitness area that could also be run by the students. This building will have a storm shelter, and so there's a half-court gymnasium that would function as the storm shelter down to the south in the green there. as well as a number of training areas, kind of flexible spaces. Again, the idea is that all of these spaces have multiple uses and can be used for different things at different times, trying to really activate every bit of this building so you get the most use out of it as possible. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on each of these items here in just a second. This is a bird's eye view rendering of the facility. What you see in the white across the top is the existing facility, and everything else would be new. And so, keep in mind, we're also talking about reskinning the existing building, but you wind up with a completely new facade with a very different character. There was a strong desire that this building needs to look, have an aesthetic that speaks to working to kind of a corporate and retail aesthetic, right? That's appropriate for these older students. And so we really leaned into that aesthetic, and you'll see that at the end with some of the closer renderings. But you can see the pickleball in the back, the greenhouse and garden, really trying to leverage some of the outdoor spaces there. The gym is the taller space to your left in the forefront, and that would also, again, function as a storm shelter, which is a requirement. The fitness area is just to the right of that, with lots of visual connectivity to the exterior. We want to highlight the activities that are happening in these spaces. And then the cafe and school spirit store is really the showpiece kind of element right at the front, recognizing that, if we want to engage members of the public to come in and grab a cup of coffee, buy a T-shirt, we want to really, the building can take part in advertising those things and really draw the public in to participate here. From there, you'll have a more traditional entrance with a secure vestibule just to the right of that. Administration is the lower portion on the right side, adjacent to the white there, and then the classroom areas are that long wing that runs kind of to the top top right of the page here. The other piece that's a taller space here is the science materials warehouse, and so the discussion came up during design to include an area to receive, stage, and distribute science materials throughout the district. And this is not dissimilar to what we saw in Leander. And so that is situated to the back of the site. Obviously, it's kind of more of a service-oriented area, and so we want those deliveries to be happening to the back. But again, we're looking for opportunities for the students of the facility to participate in that function and actually work in those areas, so that each and every one of these spaces has a component to that effect. So with regard to the total floor plan here, this is the classroom wings run to the east and west on the top end of this page. You'll see kind of 4 traditional kind of classrooms, 4 vocational labs, but in the center is a common space. And so the idea is that this is an active space that's utilized. It should reference both in materiality and kind of scale. More of a corporate setting, right? So think about like a startup company, right? A kind of something that looks modern and corporate and feels a little less like your traditional school. And so on the left side, we've got a kitchenette, and on the right side, a maker space. The center area, it's running across there, and I'll have a blow up of this in just a second, but it's got more of the support spaces, teacher workroom, but there is a fully fitted out 1-bedroom apartment in the center there. So bedroom, restroom, the whole 9 yards for those activities. When you enter the main area, there is a common space. This is an area that could be subdivided. It could have meetings for up to 100 people. You could be doing community meetings there. You could have district-wide training there. And then, of course, the students are able to use it as well during the day. And that's supported by a full commercial kitchen. And again, we're looking for the students to take part in the cooking, catering of those events, and participating in learning to do that food service piece of it. Again, moving to the south in the green area, we've got the fitness area, the support spaces for that, locker rooms, dressing, etc., and the gym storm shelter just below that in green. And to the left is the warehouse, and I'll have blow-ups of all of these in the next slides. So, recognizing that security is paramount importance, right? We want to have a gradated kind of ability to have these public, semi-public, and then the private spaces. And so classroom wings can be isolated from the semi-public if you were having a public event in the common space. But there is a level of security you have to get through the secure vestibule in order to access that to begin with. And again, looking at the cafe and shop to be open to the exterior, and potentially the fitness as well. The thought with the fitness is potentially even district employees could take advantage of that if that was an option. The thought is that if the students worked that, they manned it, they staffed it, they learned how not only to utilize a facility like that, but also to be able to work in a facility like that could allow them to go work for a 24-hour fitness or another gym of that type. And so, again, lots of folding partitions to open these spaces up, flexible areas so that they can, when they're not in use for a meeting, they could be a common area, like a student union or a corporate kind of gathering area. And then the warehouse is down, and will be shown in the next slide. But so zooming in on the classroom areas, one thing I should point out is we want the collaboration areas to be active spaces, but recognizing that some of these students also have sensory issues and may need to kind of self-regulate to quieter areas. And so we have sensory rooms, we have quiet rooms dispersed throughout this to facilitate that. We have family restrooms with full amenities and for changing and other things that they might encounter here. And then we've got the large restrooms to serve the bulk of the population in the center area in gray, as well as the staff support spaces down to the bottom in yellow. I should also mention that we've been working throughout this process with the administration. We've also met with the various departments, not the least of which is special ed. So they've weighed in and provided feedback along the way to make sure we're in alignment with their vision for how this could work. This is in blue you see the science materials storage warehouse. So we would have a receiving area, kind of a loading dock on the left where you receive the materials. Those materials are stored, categorized, and then divided out for distribution across all of your campuses. And again, looking for opportunities to have that staffed to the greatest degree possible by the students of this facility. On the right side, it's a little grayed out, but you can see the fitness, the support spaces for the fitness and the gym, again, just below that. Mr. Horn's going to talk a little bit about cost.
Thank you, Marty. So we wanted to make sure that you had an idea of where we are at as far as an estimate at this point in time with the SD. And so I'll start by just stating in the 2026 bond program, the original all-in budget, as we call it, is $21,600,000. And when I say all-in, and the reason why I want to explain that is because over on the left side of the page, you're going to see kind of how an all-in number is built, right? And so that all-in number is our design fees. It's the construction of a facility. It's all of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It's our permit fees that we incur with the City of Arlington, plan review fees, that sort of thing, as well as all of our third-party testing that we do at the end of a project to make sure that the building is built and constructed and operates properly. So you can kind of see how this particular facility at this early stage is priced. So, and I'll just cut right to the chase with what we have designed, or at least preliminary designed here. We're over that 21.6. But we wanted to be very transparent and show you. So many of you went on the trip that we went to Leander, and one of those key elements was that science materials warehouse. And so that's a big piece here, but it's something to consider. And so with that said, there's one number at that under the total project cost line there that I've delineated, and that's the $1.9 million for design fees. That particular portion is, like I'd mentioned earlier, we have in the 2019 bond program, that's part of the future design fees that we set aside. So that's being taken care of in the 2019 bond funds. So that's a part of the total cost, but I've taken it out, or it's below the line, so that you have a true cost of just the project cost outside of that. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything you'd like to add, Dr. Smith?
Yeah, I would like to add a little bit. I'm going to ask Dr. Collins to come up too, and we want to talk a little bit about programming real quickly and why you see some of the things that you see on this design, because I think it's important to tell the story. So just a reminder of who we serve in the 18 plus program. These are students beyond typical graduation age that we continue to serve until age 22 when they age out of our system. And our job, and we're excited about this job, is to help prepare them for life. So when we talk about some of the spaces that you heard in this design, some of these spaces, like in a model apartment, are to help students that are qualified for this program learn to live as independently as possible on their own, learn to function in a space like that. Where it says fitness area, learn to function in a space and possibly go to places like Planet Fitness or other gyms for the future. Why? Because we know their health matters long term. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about the most, and in just a second, I'll turn it over to Jennifer, is talking about the Science Materials Center. But in all of this design, as Kelly mentioned, one of the spaces there could host meetings of up to 100 people. So what I want you to imagine is some of the times we've hosted community meetings, like the CNSC or our trustee talks. Imagine being able to host those meetings in a place like this where our 18 plus students are actually running the coffee shop in that building, gaining life skills, learning job employment skills, and serving our community for those community meetings at the same time. The idea is to create programming where students can learn in real life about how to function outside of a school setting. And that's the reason why we didn't want it to look just like a regular school. We want it to actually look like a corporate learning environment where they're going to work every day and learning how to live beyond the typical high school career that they've had in Arlington ISD. And the Science Materials Center, one of the things that I know was really hard for our community this last year was when we started talking about our STEM labs and our STEM lab managers and reorganizing. One of the ways that we have around this and how we ensure that STEM education continues to happen in Arlington ISD for the future is to really think about how we prepare and support our teachers to be able to teach those things and use our STEM labs for the future. And Trustee Mike and President McMurrow got to see that in action in another district, and Dr. Collins is going to help me talk a little bit about that and those options that we have with the Science Materials Center and how that might support STEM education across our district and allow our 18 plus students to learn job ready skills and support our teachers all at the same time.
So what we know about elementary educators is that very few of them went into elementary education because they had a passion for science. Typically, our teachers who had a passion for science go into secondary science education, and what we often see and hear from our elementary educators is that they feel unprepared and ill-equipped to teach science concepts that they themselves are not confident in. And so through professional learning and instructional resources, we do the very best that we can to help support our teachers. The idea of a Science Materials Center allows us to provide hands-on, minds-on science activities that can happen in the classroom with students every day, that not only the teachers can feel confident in, that the students are really engaged in. And if you think back to our days when we were in the classroom learning science, we had science textbooks that we would read through, but rarely is there a lot of learning that's happening from reading a textbook about science. It's from the doing. That's whenever we experience the science, and that's when the real learning happens. So through the idea of something like a Science Materials Center, it allows us to build kits that can then be sent into classrooms so that teachers can pick up maybe a Ziploc bag that has lesson 1, all of the materials that they're going to need for that day. It's not too dissimilar from what we're going to be able to provide with our math curriculum this year. And so it allows us to cycle things through and to also be really efficient with what we provide, because not every campus needs everything every day. And so you can provide some kind of rotation so that we're able to be really efficient. It allows us to storyboard lessons for teachers so that they know what to teach, when to teach it, and then they have everything that they need to be able to provide that instruction. Tonight, you actually approved during the consent agenda some materials where we're going to try doing some hands-on, minds-on science activities in grades 3, 4, 5. This year, we're purchasing some things to kind of dip our toe into the water with this, and we're really excited about it. I think we have a lot to learn, but we know that if we really want to see science instruction happening in a robust way in our elementary classrooms, we have to change the way that we're providing resources to our teachers.
So I think one of the key things that to keep in mind on this is that we've also heard feedback from teachers that gathering materials for science lessons is hard. And sometimes they're doing it out of their own pocket and on their own time. And this would allow a learning experience for our students in our school district to actually help meet that need so our teachers don't have to do that, and help us make sure that we're having high quality science instruction on a regular basis in all of our classrooms across the district. And here's the good news. We've actually seen it in action, and it actually works. And I think Trustee Mike and Trustee McMurrow can tell you a little bit about their visits, and if anybody wants to know more. but we wanted to elaborate a little bit on the programming of this building because this is not a typical building that you would see. This is one of those that specifically, kind of like our CTC, it fits a specific need in our school system where we have a facility that is designed to meet the instructional needs of our students that are needing us in this important setting.
Thank you.
So I'll have Marty
Oh,
come
yes,
back.
please. I didn't know if you guys
we've
had
got a couple more slides that I think Marty wants to share with you just so you can see how this looks.
So this is the fun part. So what might this facility look like? Wanted to share an exterior rendering here. So this is the front door. The aesthetic here is we're leaning into the corporate and retail to some degree aesthetic. You'll notice there's outdoor seating outside of the cafe and spirit shop. You can see in through the glass to the fitness center. But you can tell there's lots of things going on, and this is something special. It's not it's not your typical situation that you see you everywhere. And so we're really excited about what we can bring to the table with this. And I've got one more of the interior here I wanted to share, and this is the collaboration area in between the classrooms. And so the thought is foldable partitions at many of the classrooms that open up and allow those spaces to be truly flexible. To allow the learning to spill out into this. We want this space to be an active space. And this is the aesthetic with the kind of the warm woods, that really we're looking at. The feel should be, along those kind of corporate startup kind of a feel, kind of an active, kind of a hip place to be. And so wanted to share these images with you to get you kind of an idea of what we're thinking right now as far as the overall aesthetic. Certainly would love to entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Sims, Mr. Horn, Dr. Collins, and Dr. Smith. Do I have any trustees with questions or discussion regarding the VLK 18-plus facility schematic design? Trustee Fowler.
Thank you, President McMorrow. This is a win-win. It's a win for the students in our district, and it's also a win for the community. That they're going to be able to use the facilities, the workout maybe, the cafe, all those things. I just think this is going to be a lovely example of what we can do here in AISD. Good
Fantastic.
work. Thank you.
It's very special. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President McMorrow. I didn't get to go on the visit, but I did go to a seminar at TASB Governance Camp back in March that was hosted by a school district that has a facility like this, and the actual presentation seminar was put on by the students who described the things that they do in that facility. And there was a substantial discussion about how creating a unique facility for students in this program just really opens the door for so many opportunities. So it's great that we're bringing something like this to AISD. The only question I had, and it might have been mentioned, I might have just missed it, was about how many students do we currently have in the program, and do we anticipate being able to enroll more students in the program as a result of this facility?
I believe this last year we had 87 students that were enrolled in this program, but that doesn't include a number of students that actually opted out of some of our services in the district. In what I would say to that is, right now we don't have anything like this for our students. We're doing our best with the facilities that we have, but the truth is they are in normal classrooms across our district and not having the job embedded learning experiences like we have right here. While we have some great partnerships across our district to get them into some businesses to learn, we don't have a learning space dedicated to them. The thought is by building that learning space, we will actually have more students coming in, and we'll absolutely be able to grow that over a number of.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Mr. Mike.
I was trying to give everybody a chance to talk, but no one popped up. So I don't have questions. I was fortunate enough to go on the trip to visit Leander and Blanton. And when we get the materials, we didn't see the schematic yet. And so I was searching for that. But I see it now, and there's a lot of visual elements that remind me of what I saw in Leander. The good thing is I think this is better. One particular instance, right, with the warehouse, because at Leander, you had to go back outside to go to the warehouse, which wasn't bad because when I was there, that entire facility was amazing. What I see here are the best elements that we saw from all of those facilities incorporated into one facility. And I specifically looked for all the things that I saw. I mean, I don't see anything about the little thing where you go behind the bathroom and able to fix the pipes, but I'm sure they're in there. But this is amazing. And for me, I think I've gotten to the point where when I see schematics of buildings and I get excited, it's a different world. But going there and seeing the students there and seeing them in that environment and seeing how happy they were and what they were doing. And I think there was a conversation where students had talked about whether or not they were graduated or adults because they were consistently in the same classrooms, and being able to go to a facility that did not mirror a school did a lot for them. So this is just testament to what we are doing and what we should be doing for our 18-plus students, our SPED program, because, there comes a time where it's almost like you can forget the most vulnerable population that we have, and just amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. And I just want to echo some of what you said. And I learned through that tour how much 18-plus students, this program really does change the trajectory of their lives in so many cases. And I was talking to a parent at our May graduations, or I guess beginning of June, and her child, which is actually one of my former fourth graders, but time flies, she was eligible for 18 plus, but they decided not to do it. And that aligns with a lot of feedback that we've gotten. I was talking to Dr. Brown and Ms. Bustamante from our SPED team, and they were saying that right now, the option that we have for our students who would benefit from this program, they right now would have to just keep going to their traditional high school. So like Lamar, for example, and they're young adults, so they do not want to be there. And they are very adamant about that. And so this is the type of facility that includes life skills, job embedded skills. It would benefit the community as a whole, get them to see some of the experiences that we're offering our students. And it would also benefit our system as a whole. If we're having an experience for students that gives them life and job readiness, and they're also helping our teachers in the classroom by giving them ready-made lab kits. And we know that a previous bond-funded program was having 2 STEM labs at every single one of our elementary schools. And we have to, and I appreciate you for bringing this up, Dr. Smith, we have to connect all the dots and acknowledge that with the reorg in May, we did not keep on our STEM lab managers. And so that does come at a cost, but I think that this really would help us enhance our science instruction and also give our students an opportunity to have unique skills. And that's just one of the many job embedded, efforts that this one facility would offer. And we have so many partnerships already out in the community with Texas Rangers, with grocery store companies, where our students would still participate in that. But this would be kind of a hub for our 18 plus students that it doesn't exist here in Arlington ISD. And so Mr. Chapa asked a good question about how many students would this serve. Right now, I don't think it would be the same number as if this existed, because I do gather that the students who would be eligible for this after they graduate high school, a lot of times they don't take advantage of the 18 plus program that we currently have because we don't have this. My question was about the project cost. And I do appreciate your transparency, Mr. Horn. Can we go back to that slide with the breakdown? You mentioned that when we originally had the bond Proposition A scope, this is over what the original projection was. You pointed out that the science materials warehouse addition, that's a significant portion of that. And I don't know if that was an original consideration for what was in the scope when this bond was put together. Is there any, and this might not be a question we can answer tonight, but is there any potential of, if we take things into this warehouse, is there anything with another warehouse or another site or another facility that we could eventually take offline because we have this now? Because I'm just trying to think of, this is our first schematic design and facility approval, and it makes me just a little bit cautious as a trustee to look at something and we're already over on a project, because we have 2 elementary schools, we have a lot within Prop A, and I want to be responsible. And this is our first project, and I just would love to know any other context that goes along with, if we're over, here are some other things that we can consider.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because we have to be thoughtful about this as we move forward. When we do those estimates for a bond proposition for our voters to consider, those are all estimates, and that's what happens through some of these. There are multiple ways we can go about this. We can always look and see how we value engineer to make sure we cut down some of these things to live closer within a budget. Also remember that when we budget for these things, we do have some contingency fees or administrative fees that we budget in here that we could use as well. And finally, there's, to your point, there are some things that we are going to be talking to you about over the course of this year about how we might be able to use older facilities, offline some of our properties that maybe we don't need anymore, that allow us to get additional dollars to address this. And then finally, last thing that to mention, you do have 2019 bond interest earnings that you're able to use for something like this as well. So I think there are multiple ways to address that along the way, and our job would be, if you approve this schematic design, to do all of those things and say, how can we make sure that what we've designed is value engineered to meet the needs of the programming there, but also how do we use other funds to make something like this become a reality in our system if we believe, and I think we do and our voters did, that we need something like that. And I do believe wholeheartedly that we could come up with those plans.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Sorry, I'll get to you in just a second. I appreciate that, and I do appreciate, again, the transparency with all of this, because it Proposition A was our most expensive proposition, and I know that, I also know at the same time that this was the one facility that I saw, especially after those site visits, it really reimagines what experience we are offering our students just as they leave our system. And there were some real emotional moments when we were on our site visits, because we saw and we learned that had we not had this, or had the students not had this type of facility and experience from the school district, there would be a very different future for them, because a lot of times these students come from families too that the parents didn't have the capacity to provide these life and job embedded skills. And so it is something that I think aligns very tightly for the experiences and the future vision that we have for our kids. And so I do believe it would be worth the investment. I just wanted to have a discussion about, this is over. And I wanted to make sure that we're just being mindful of that and looking at some possible things we could do to offset that extra cost.
I was also just going to mention that the two of you that got to visit noticed that it's not called the Science Materials Center any longer. It's called the Instructional Materials Center. And so as you think about where our team here in Arlington ISD has bilingual material stored or pre-K material stored at the Little Road Annex or those kinds of things, the ability to be able to bring them all underneath one roof so that whenever we open a new pre-K classroom because of growth, that we're able to say, here are all of the things that you need for a pre-K classroom, and it's set and ready to go. So not things like furniture, but the instructional materials part of it, you can house all of those things together. So the efficiencies for instructional materials is also something else to be included, just exactly what you're talking about, President.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Dr. Collins, for clarifying that. I was trying to think of other examples that looks like ample warehouse space and the need to be able to provide the tools that our teachers need in an efficient manner and be part of this program. I regret not being able to go on the tour that the two of you guys went on, but I've heard nothing but praise. And I've also know folks who run a nonprofit geared to adult individuals with special needs, and the demand is great in our community for those type of services. So unless someone else has a motion, I would like to make a motion, but first get clarification on one question. I like how we have the cafe and options to teach them life skills and bring in money. I just noticed the pickleball courts there, and given the shortage of pickleball courts, I have a lot of friends who would jump at the chance to rent those pickleball courts out. Is that part of the plan?
It absolutely can be. And that was the thing Dr. Smith challenged us to find, as Marty said earlier, ways to activate this building and keep it busy, and give these students a chance to both learn and to operate or work. And so the design relative to all these amenities is designed so that the students can use those facilities, but also operate or work in those facilities and benefit our employees and maybe others, right?
Hopefully, Greg McWitty, you're listening to this. Having said that, does anyone have a motion, or can I? Yeah.
Mr. Wilbanks, go for it.
I move approval of the schematic design for the 18+ program as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Trustee Knight. We will now move to vote on approval of the schematic design of 18+. Thank you, trustees. The motion passes, all in the affirmative.
I want to thank Marty and our VLK partners for putting this together and pushing this forward. Trustees, we thank you for this. I did want to mention, for those of you that have brought up, you didn't get a chance to go, our friends in some other districts would be glad to host us again, and I will be glad to take you all down there again over the course of the year if some other people would like to see other examples in action. But we appreciate this allowing us to get this project moving, because we think it's going to be pretty special. So Marty, thank you to you and your team.
Thank you. Our next action item is consider approval of the charges for community-based committees, Arlington ISD Ambassadors, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and Long Range Facility Planning. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I think you know this. We were challenged by our trustees to create some different scopes and charters for some of your community committees that you on a regular basis have used in Arlington ISD. It doesn't mean that they haven't served us well in the past, but it's an opportunity for us to look at things and how they could be done for the future. So these three committees were developed in concept by Ms. Richardson. In meeting with her, our team then took those and bring these to you for your consideration. As you note, we don't have a committee named the Financial Futures Committee anymore. And again, I want to point out, it's not because they weren't doing good work. It's because our work is evolving as a school district and we might need something different. So the Ambassadors Program really helps us create a pipeline of community members that are educated about the ins and the outs of Arlington ISD and can be ambassadors for us throughout the community. And that's a 2-year program. The Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is very similar to what you've seen in the past, but it continues that oversight from citizens throughout our community on how our bond dollars are used in progress throughout the bond program. And then finally, the Long Range Facility Planning Committee. You know, we have significant work that we have to do as a school district right now, and that is to figure out how we maximize the use of our facilities across our district to meet the needs of our students. And so this committee will be getting together as soon as practically possible to be studying those things like our demographer reports, our utilization reports, our facility condition index that we've done over the last year as well, and put all of those things together so that you as a board of trustees have a good recommendation to act on potentially in how we continue to use and modify our use of facilities in Arlington ISD moving forward. So that's the premise of all three of those committees. And I believe you've had the ability to look at these now for a little while, and here to answer any questions, Dr. Hill, Dr. Collins, and myself, and Mr. Horn, Mr. Rivas can answer any questions on what has been drawn up for you in these charters that you have in front of you this evening. But we are asking for action on this tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Do I have any board members with questions or discussion regarding our community committees? Mr. Mike.
Just a question real quick on the Long-Range Facilities Planning Committee. Because this is a draft. Is there any possibility of, because I know we're looking at the demographic reports, we're looking at the FCI, all of that, even the utilization. Is there anything in here that precludes this committee from looking at what any long-range planning by the city, i.e. meaning where business is or where housing is going to go into, that this committee can also look at to help us determine a long-range plan?
Absolutely. Our intent is to actually partner with our city friends and to be able to have them come in, provide information as well. And so that nothing in this charter precludes us from doing any of that. In fact, if we're planning well, we would actually use our partners very well. I think UTA and the City of Arlington and TCC have all said, hey, we want to be part of these things in the past. And I absolutely think they'll be part of things for the future. So nothing precludes us from doing that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Good question. Any other trustees with questions or discussion regarding the 3 community-based committees? Okay. I'm not seeing any other lights, but I do want to commend Ms. Richardson. She's not able to be here this evening, but she was really bold in her approach to reimagining and evolving our committees. We have a brand new bond that just passed. We need oversight of that bond as we transition from the 2019 CBOC into the 2026 bond. We need a committee that serves that purpose. But the ambassador program is something that we, over the past few years, actually, as a board, have had some interest around, and we've attended some sessions presented by other districts, both close by and all around the state of Texas, at our SLI and EdCon sessions. And we, like you said, Dr. Smith, we still have the need for financial futures and a lot of what their charge was. But beyond that, what else can we do with this group of people who are committed and passionate about the work that is done at the district level? And what else can we do with the community members that are engaged and want to be a part of supporting the students in our school district? So I'm really excited about these 3 committees, and I just wanted to give that hat tip to Ms. Richardson. Even though she is not here, she was integral in this work. If there are no other discussion or questions or discussion, we will now move to vote. Trustees, are there any motions to approve the charges for these community-based committees? Okay, motion for Mr. Mike. Is there a second? I'll give that one to Mr. Chapa. We'll now move to vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, trustees.
Trustees, I want to thank you for that. What this allows us to do now, and so you know, in the past, we've had the ability to get things out to the community and seek volunteers for these committees. And so now that you've approved these charters, we're able to actually put that plan in motion. So over the next couple of meetings, we'll be bringing back to you some other items so that we can make sure we get these committees populated as soon as possible, that you're able to approve those committee the applications and the composition of those committees, and we're able to get them moving as quickly as possible because we do have some big work we got to attack this year. So thank you for approving that this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Up next, we'll consider and approve a resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of bonds. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, Norberto is here this evening, and I think you recognize George as well. So they'll go over what we're asking for tonight. We have two things for you to consider, and I'll have Norberto and George take both of those.
Good evening, Board President McMurrow, trustees, and Superintendent Dr. Smith. I do want to kind of just start off, and I want to mention the tax rate implication, because we just received the preliminary values, certified values from the appraisal district, and the tax value survey due to TA is due before August 1st. So using those values, right now they are projecting that our M&O tax rate will be decreasing by 0.0068, which does round up to a penny. So the M&O side will be going down by 1 penny. And as you'll see right now, on the INS side, the financing plan is being presented to go up 1 penny. So it will be looks like it will be a tax neutral tax rate for this upcoming year. So with that said, I do want to introduce Mr. George Williford. He is our financial advisor for the district, and I do want to mention that our bond counsel, Sam Gill, is also in attendance in case there is questions. So come on up.
Good evening, President McMurrow, Dr. Smith, and members of the board. Pleasure to be here, and you do have two action items, but they relate to really the same matter. The first item is to appoint the financing team, as is always done, that will be involved. And so that's ourselves as a financial advisor, McCall Parkhurst, Sam's firm, bond counsel, and then you'll see in just a moment the underwriters. And the other matter is an order actually authorizing the issuance, establishing parameters, and delegating pricing authority. So we've got very abbreviated information. Of course, $469.7 million was passed in May. This will be the first $125 million tranche. And I will point out of that, $110 million will be from Prop A and $15 million will be from Proposition B. And so that'll leave $344.7 million still to be issued. Right now, we in modeling just have that split over two equal issuances. You'll see in the calendar in a moment, given everything that needs to occur, we're anticipating sale or pricing of the issue August 24th that week or thereabouts. As I indicated, pricing approval is delegated to the superintendent or chief financial officer. The parameters that are in the order right now is a maximum interest rate of 5.75%. Of course, that's well above the current market. Final maturity of 2057. Actually, we're targeting 2056, so it'll be a same term as what we have done in the past. And then structured, as Norberto just said, to maintain or actually achieve an INS tax rate of 30.07 cents, which represents on the INS side a 1 penny increase, as was planned when the election was conducted, and so on. The financing team, and this relates to the appointment in the first item, would be Hilltop Securities as municipal advisor, bond counsel McCall Parkhurst, and then Norberto recommended underwriting group, and we concur that it represents, given the size of the issue, a very good underwriting team. RBC Capital Markets as senior manager with Cabrera, Siebert Williams, Frost, and UMB as co-managers in the issue. And what you'll see here is the calendar of events. Tonight, the board meeting will try to get information to the rating agencies early next week, including the draft offering document or preliminary official statement. We already have rating calls scheduled during that week that's indicated on both the 12th and 13th. Then we'd anticipate early, hopefully the next week, getting the ratings, actually putting the preliminary official statement into the market, posting it, so that beginning the next Monday, we could consider pricing. And the market, as you'll see in just a moment, has been very volatile, starting really early last week, but late last week, and then entering into this week as well. And so we wanted some flexibility. So the 24th, and if for whatever reason our underwriter and the underwriters from the firms feel differently, we do have then that following week. But then we also would need to do it early enough so that we didn't get into like a Thursday, September 3rd attempt to price, because by then everyone's gone for Labor Day, and so the market just literally kind of shuts down. The important thing is we need the issue to be priced so that on September 10th, the debt service would be established, and we could then you'd be in a position to set the tax rate accordingly. This really shows what the market's done. I don't know necessarily how much sense it makes, but this goes back to January of 25. And you'll see there's a big blip, April. That was when President Trump announced the tariffs, and the market just reacted crazy. But you'll see we've had periods where rates did drop off back in the spring when we were planning on the issue. We weren't looking at rates quite what they've done. What happened is last week, because of the Iran situation, oil, and so on, we had a run-up in tax-exempt rates, in particular last Thursday, about a 12 basis point increase. And then this week, it eased back Monday and Tuesday. However, yesterday, when the Federal Reserve didn't act and people are now worried about inflation, longer-term rates have gone up. So this was as of when we were putting the information together for the packet on the 17th, what 5, 10, and 20-year municipal market data rates were. And you'll see, but just as an indication, today, that 20-year rate, the top rate, instead of 393, the index was 4.09. And then the 10-year, the middle one, was 3.35. So 20 basis point increase, or 21 on the 10-year level, and about a 16 basis point on the longer term. So our hope is, since this is later in the month, hopefully we can see some settlement and market kind of restore back. We've got some issues we were talking before that need to price next week and so on, and that's where I'm glad Arlington's not in that position. So anyway, we'll be monitoring and keeping Norberto apprised and everything. But with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Williford and Mr. Rivas. So there are two related action items, and at this time, do I have a motion for action item D, consider and approve a resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of bonds? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion before we move? Mr. Chop.
No, thank you, President McMurrow. I had a motion to approve the resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of bonds.
I have a motion from Trustee Chapa. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Wilbank. Please vote. The motion carries unanimously. And up next is our related action item, action item E, consider and adopt an order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax school building bonds, appointing a pricing officer and delegating to the pricing officer the authority to approve the sale of bonds and documents related thereto, establishing certain parameters for the approval of such matters, levying an annual ad valorem tax for the payment of the bonds, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject.
Trustees, can I have Mr. Rivas explain that really briefly? Because that's a lot of words right there. So what are we asking everybody to do tonight?
So the first agenda item was approving the team. This second agenda item is letting the team go out and actually price bonds. And here's the parameters. Here's what we can't do. Here's the maximum interest rate, the length of the bond. So this is the actual official document that governs the sale.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Do I have any discussion or question? Do you have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Wilbanks. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Thank you, trustees. We will now move to vote. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have already covered our consent agenda, so we will now move on to item I. Approval of the interlocal agreement between Arlington ISD and Child Care. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. That was part of the consent agenda, correct, Dr. Smith? Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to open forum for non-agenda items. As stated on, Ms. Crossno, do we have any speakers?
President McMurrow, we do not.
Thank you, Ms. Crossno. We will now move on to Superintendent Comments. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I would like to make some very brief comments tonight simply because we have great things happening in our school district, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge those right now. I don't have a clicker, so I need, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. So tonight we're going to focus on your priority of talent and resources, and as you all know, what we mentioned earlier, we had the opportunity to welcome new teachers to Arlington ISD. In our midst the other day, we had 319 new teachers in attendance, but we have about 400 new teachers that are joining us. One of the things that was most amazing about this is we have far fewer brand new teachers than we've had in the past. So we are attracting experienced teachers from across the area to Arlington ISD. It's great to have some balance in our system again, and we're very thankful for our HR team and the people who are doing recruiting, because it was evident in there that we actually have people who are wanting to come to Arlington ISD that have been in other districts from around us for a while. So that's great news. We're excited to have them and excited about how they're going to help us impact students. You should have heard some of the conversations they were having at our tables as we were talking about your vision statement that was adopted this year. I was able to welcome them and share that vision statement. Dr. Collins went through the values and beliefs that you've adopted and also our priorities. So at the beginning of every year, every staff member that comes into our system knows and understands the direction that you as trustees have laid out for us over the past couple of years. It was an exciting day for our new teachers. We also got to welcome our bilingual teachers back, and they're getting ready for a new school year. Our World Languages team hosted the 3rd annual One-Way Dual Language Academy last week to ensure that all teachers are prepared to have an outstanding year. The Academy provided knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to build a strong foundation for success from day one. I did not tell any bad jokes to that group, and I think you all would be proud of me for that. The next part is all kinds of talent. I also want to highlight some of the talent that we have from educators who aren't just teaching in the classroom, like our swim coaches who've been working with young swimmers from all over the district all summer long. And our career and technical team and Spence, who have given lots of students exceptional experiences over the summer where they've been able to discover and explore future career opportunities. All of these things continue to happen despite the fact that we haven't been in school. Those are my brief remarks for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Are there any trustees with board member reports tonight? I just wanted to briefly commend our district on the Taste of Arlington ISD event that many of us were able to attend recently. This was the 3rd year in a row that our school district has offered this to the community for free. And I wanted to commend not just our food nutrition team and the leadership of Mr. Lewis, but also all of our every adult in the district who helps our students with all CTE efforts. And our culinary programs are just something extra special that we have here at AISD. So there's a program in AISD called By Students for Students, and all of our high schools as well as the CTC are represented, and the best recipes that students create not only are featured for our community, and we were full that evening for those of y'all who attended, but they are also going to be rotated into the breakfast and lunch menus so that all of our students in the district can get new delicious lunch items for the upcoming school year. So thank you to everyone who attended and everyone who made this possible for our community. And I also want to mention our partners at Taqueria Saltillo and Prince Lebanese Grill, because they are longtime sponsors for this as well as other efforts. Thank you. And I also just wanted to say this is our last board meeting before the beginning of school, because next time we meet, it will be right after the first day of school. So many of our staff work pretty much year round. Dr. Smith knows how that life is. But for our staff who works year round, but also for our staff who just reported back, many of our teachers report back this week. We just want to wish them all a happy back to school, as well as our students and our families. So at this time, we are going to recess before moving into the hearing portion of our agenda. Vice President Haynes, do we have any items to report? Okay. So before we move on to the last portion of our agenda tonight, we will now take a brief recess, and let's aim to be back on the dais in 5 minutes. The time is now 9:38 p.m. and we are in recess. The time is now 9:53 p.m. and we are back from recess. Up next, we have a hearing on proposed non-renewal of Emilia, Carrilo. The hearing will come to order. This meeting of the Board of Trustees of Arlington Independent School District is convened on July 30th, 2026 at 9:53 p.m. We are now meeting to consider the proposed term contract non-renewal of Emilia Carrilo, who is presently employed with the district. The following board members are present. Trustee Melody Fowler, Trustee Larry Mike, Trustee Leanne Haynes, myself, Sarah McMurrow, Trustee David Wilbanks, and Trustee Justin Chapa. For the record, a quorum is present. The Board of Trustees has received and reviewed both the proposal for non-renewal, hearing record, and the recommendation sent by the board's designated hearing officer. At this time, the board will hear an oral argument from both Ms. Carrillo's attorney and the Arlington ISD administration's attorney. No new evidence will be considered in this matter. Ms. Carrillo, through her legal counsel, Mr. Ramirez, has requested that this hearing be an open session. At this time, the administration may begin its argument. You will have 10 minutes, and you may reserve whatever time you do not use for rebuttal.
Thank you. President McMurrow, Board of Trustees, Council, may it please the Board. On May 7th, 2026, this Board voted to propose non-renewal of Emilia Carrilo's 25-26 term contract. You designated a hearing officer on May 22nd, and a hearing was held based upon the allegations that Ms. Carrillo provided false information either in her job application or in her meeting with Human Resources. And witnesses were produced that supported both of these allegations. Specifically, Ms. Carrillo, on her job application, responded no to the question, have you ever been informed you may be recommended or proposed for termination or non-renewal from any position? That was on her job application. She responded no. Also on the application, she was asked, have you ever been terminated, fired, resigned in lieu of termination or non-renewal, or otherwise dismissed from employment? Again, she answered no. A third thing, have you ever been placed on non-medical leave, suspension, administrative leave, or disciplinary probation from any position? To which she answered no. That was not true. All of those statements. The school district did a public information request from one of her former employers, Joshua Independent School District, who provided us, through the Public Information Act, her leave letter, her resignation, and her voluntary resignation agreement with the district. So each of those proved the three things that she answered were not true. She even entered her own resignation letter as an exhibit, which again shows that how she answered her application was untrue. She also testified that another district, which we didn't know about at the time, Fort Worth Independent School District, had told her that they were going to propose her for non-renewal and that she had resigned. All of that contradicts what she answered in her application. Now, the hearing examiner took his time, put together the record, heard all of this, and then determined in his opinion, which was sent to you, and I quote, Ms. Carrilo declared in her application under penalty of perjury that her answers were true and correct. Yet she answered no to each of those. And so it was his recommendation to you, based upon the evidence, that Ms. Carrillo's AISD application for employment included false responses to questions. Ms. Carrillo's falsely told Ms. Johnson, Dolores Johnson, that she had not been placed on administrative leave. There was a recording of that in the evidence, which you've heard in the record. Statements on Ms. Carrillo's application for employment with AISD violated numerous provisions of AISD Board Policy DFBB Local, as listed in the proposal for non-renewal letter. And then his final recommendation, there is substantial evidence in the record Ms. Carrillo violated one or more provisions of AISD's board policies. It was his recommendation that based upon Ms. Carrillo violating one or more AISD board policy provisions, the proposal for non-renewal should be affirmed and her 25-26 term contract should be non-renewed. The administration recommends that you adopt this decision wholeheartedly and grant the non-renewal of her 25-26 contract. I will reserve all further comments for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carrillo's attorney, Mr. Ramirez, you may now present on behalf of Ms. Carrillo.
Good evening. I'm Russell Ramirez.
Sorry, you have up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On May 7, 2026, the Arlington Independent School District provided Ms. Carrillo a notice of proposed non-renewal. Arlington did not consider Ms. Carrillo's most recent evaluations. The evaluations were relevant to the board's action as provided by the Texas Education Code. In other words, they have to consider her evaluations in your decision to not renew her contract tonight. The district's notice of proposed non-renewal alleged 8 reasons the district offered no evidence of 7 of these allegations, evidently because it had no evidence. Arlington failed to prove by substantial evidence that Ms. Carrillo made a false statement on her employment application with Arlington. Arlington retaliated against Ms. Carrillo for having filed a grievance in violation of the district's policy DGBA, confidentiality. The district's case was dependent on a single document attached as Arlington's exhibit. The letter was addressed to Ms. Carrillo from the Joshua Independent School District and was dated March 30th, 2022, notifying her she would be placed on administrative leave with pay. Arlington conceded it filed a public information request on Joshua and was aware of the confidentiality of the agreement. The district argued that the confidentiality agreement was immaterial because it filed a public information request. A public information request is a request. Arlington has no subpoena power over Joshua. The Attorney General's office on requesting public information, specifically confidential information, could be excluded. Confidential information, which would include information such as FERPA. Joshua had contractual obligation to object to release of the terms. In other words, when you file a public information request, it was incumbent on Joshua to object of Miss Castillo's separation from Joshua. Arlington was now using this document as a reason for not renewing her contract. Mr. Scott Kale, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, testified that a public information request was filed on Ms. Carrillo. He said additional verification was needed. He could not recall a reason why a public information request was filed on Ms. Carrillo. The resignation agreement that Arlington relied on specifically stated Ms. Carrillo was in good standing with the Joshua Independent School District when she resigned. Dr. Lee was the hearing officer on the grievance Ms. Carrillo filed in response to allegations being made against her by her principal. Arlington asserted these unsubstantiated allegations had nothing to do with her performance as a teacher. In a case called Evans versus New Caney, the school district sought to non-renew a teacher's contract over allegations she had violated confidentiality agreement with the district. The teacher had agreed to refrain from speaking about the underlying events of her non-renewal. Ms. Carrillo's testimony on her separation from Joshua would be a breach of the confidentiality agreement she made with Joshua. The Attorney General's office form on requesting public information provides confidential information may be excluded. Joshua breached its confidential agreement with Ms. Carrillo. Arlington was depending on a document that was provided to Arlington in violation of the agreement Joshua made with Ms. Carrillo. Ms. Carrillo filed a grievance against Arlington over allegations of physical contact with a student. The hearing officer, Stephanie Lee, found the evidence did not substantiate this allegation and the transfer would be the appropriate resolution. Dr. Lee further stated a supplemental document would be added to the existing reprimand to reflect the information Arlington provided, as well as the outcome of the follow-up interview conducted as part of the process. Any personal information that specifically stated relied upon confirmed findings of inappropriate physical contact with a student be reviewed by Human Resources for correction or removal as appropriate. This decision would be maintained in Ms. Carrillo's personal file, and Human Resources would take any necessary action regarding existing documentation to ensure alignment with documentation to ensure that Dr. Lee's determination would be contained. Mr. Kell had no knowledge of whether a document was added to the existing reprimand to reflect the information Arlington provided, as well as the outcome of the follow-up interview conducted as part of this process. He could not say whether documentation that specifically stated or relied upon confirmed a finding of inappropriate physical contact with a student was reviewed by Human Resources for correction or removal as appropriate. The decision was to be maintained in Ms. Carrillo's personnel file, and Human Resources was take any necessary action regarding existing documentation to ensure alignment with her determination. Ms. Carrillo also believed this non-renewal was retaliation because her grievance was heard at level 1, level 2, level 3, and then sent back to level 1. The district offered no response as to why her grievance was sent back to level 1. It appears the district did not want this board to hear her grievance and Dr. Lee's recommendation before it could propose non-renewal. Arlington then filed a public information request with Joshua ISD. Ms. Carrillo's evaluations were relevant to the board's action as provided by the Education Code in a case called Bryan versus Hamlin Independent School District. A teacher was proposed for non-renewal for falsification of records or other documents related to the district's activities, such as we have here tonight. The commissioner held that the failure of the district board of trustees to consider an employee's evaluations prior to non-renewal was fatal. The school district in Olstorff versus Manor failed to rebut. This is a retaliation case. Failed to rebut the petitioner's prima facie case of retaliation. Ms. Ramos sent Ms. Carrillo numerous memos and a grievance over several issues, including the district's failure to expel a student who had threatened to shoot her. The commissioner held that the petitioner had established that her contract would not have been non-renewal if she had not filed a grievance, such as we have in this case. Non-renewal Ms. Carrillo's term contract was not supported by substantial evidence. A document gained in violation of an agreement with Joshua made with Ms. Carrillo was not substantial evidence. The document the district submitted that she was placed on administrative leave may be a scintilla evidence, but it is not more but it is more than a sincerity, but it is not more than a sincerity which is required. Arlington's action to non-renew the term contract employment of petitioner would be unlawful as Arlington failed to consider Ms. Carrillo's evaluations prior to accepting a recommendation for her non-renewal. The evaluations were relevant to the board's actions as provided by the Texas Education Code. Dr. Lee specifically made provisions about what should be the result of her decision, and that should have been in her evaluations, in her personnel file. Ms. Carrillo has established a prima facie case of retaliation. We urge the board to renew Ms. Carrillo's contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Mr. Eichelbaum, do you want to rebut with your reserved time?
Yes, please. I'd like. How much time do I have? Thank you. Well, first of all, Mr. Ramirez waived the evaluation arguments by not bringing it up before the designated hearing officer, so it's not in the record. But put that aside. Evaluations are only required in a non-renewal if performance is the reason that the person is being proposed for non-renewal. In this case, there was actually a stipulation made at the beginning of the hearing that the only grounds that the school district was proposing non-renewal and taking action was based upon falsification of the application. Falsification of the application happened before she even worked for the district, and therefore it had nothing to do with her evaluations, and no one has ever said that we're evaluating her for her performance. So there's plenty of commissioners' decisions. I didn't come prepared because that argument hadn't been raised before to give you the names of the decisions, but that is not going to get this case reversed if the board chooses to non-renew. That said, the next argument he makes is that she made a confidentiality agreement with Joshua, which we weren't part of, so I'm not sure how we violated anything by whatever Joshua did. That said, the fact is, according to that New Caney case that they quoted, Joshua could non-renew her for violating their agreement. She's not working for Joshua. I don't know what Joshua's going to do. She's working for us, and she falsified her application for us. Her claim that we retaliated against her because the district ruled in favor of her grievance, which had nothing to do with the non-renewal, but I'm not sure how we or why we would retaliate against her if we ruled in her favor in that grievance. It doesn't really make sense. The designated hearing officer did find, and I think it's important for you to understand, Ms. Carrillo's Joshua ISD voluntary resignation agreement does not specifically state she could not share the administrative leave letter or information. Ms. Carrillo placed her resignation letter into evidence. If her administrative leave letter was intended to be confidential, the resignation letter would have been equally confidential. He then says, any confidentiality of the voluntary resignation agreement was waived when Ms. Carrillo answered questions about the agreement with Ms. Johnson and during the hearing. Further, even if the voluntary resignation agreement was breached by Joshua or Ms. Carrillo, this is your hearing officer, it is hard to understand why the record was not a public record, subject to the Texas Public Information Act, and Ms. Carrillo failed to present any legal support that it was exempt from the Public Information Act. So all these things were addressed by the hearing officer and reviewed. The fact is, she falsified her application. And she can blame Joshua as much as she wants for having revealed that she falsified her application, but it doesn't change the fact that in the end, she falsified her application to get the job. And we would encourage you, as a board, to support the decision, or the recommendation, I should say, of the hearing, designated hearing examiner and non-renew her contract. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. The board has reviewed the record and heard oral, do we have additional time? Thank you. I apologize, Mr. Ramirez. Would you like to speak with your additional time for rebuttal? Yes, sir. I apologize. Thank you. When you're ready.
I have 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
okay, just, okay, well, that, we'll take what we can get. Okay, so what opposing counsel is saying, it was somehow my burden to tell them how their presentation was deficient. That somehow would say, well, wait a minute, where's her evaluations? That's required by law. They didn't present anything on her evaluations, and that's against the education code. And the case that I present you in my arguments is that it's fatal. It's a fatal defect that you did not consider her evaluations. And so they may say, well, and our complaint is that what Arlington is relying on a contract that that has a confidentiality provision, and generally their attitude is everything is subject to public information request. So that if we have a violation of, say, FERPA, such as perhaps what was happening in Joshua, that we were somehow that nevertheless, even though this is clearly confidential information, that nevertheless it's subject to being disclosed. No, Joshua had an agreement with us that all of this, that we're, that the grounds for this. And again, I want to emphasize that the agreement that they tendered to the hearings examiner said that she was in good standing with the school district, which means that the insinuation is that she was some desperado trying to put something over on Arlington. And that was just not the case, and that was not within the nature of her separation from Joshua. So, let's see, and the hearing officer that heard the case conceded, yes, you prevailed in the grievance that you filed, and the recommendation was that she be transferred within the district, and put all of this language in there about what's going in her personnel file. And again, why did we go 1, 2, 3, and then back to 1? What reason, what possible legal justification is there for that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Thank you both for your presentations. The board has reviewed the record and heard oral presentations by both parties. At this time, are there any trustees with questions or requests for deliberation? Mr. Chapa.
Thank you, President McMurrow. Mr. Ackelbaum, you were going to, I think, had something to say in response. I'll give you a chance to say that.
Thank you. I was simply going to say that I'm not saying it was his burden with regard to evaluations, because evaluations is irrelevant to this process. When the grounds, any different than if we were going to do it for a reduction in force. If you're doing a reduction in force, unless evaluations is part of the reason that that person was selected to be in the reduction of force, you don't have to bring evaluations. And there's plenty of commissioners' decisions that talk about you don't have to have evaluations if it has nothing to do with the grounds. If someone struck a student or just abandoned their contract, you wouldn't have to bring evaluations because it has nothing to do with the grounds for which the person was proposed for non-renewal.
And I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Was this hearing required to be an open?
This part today?
Yeah.
It was up to the employee.
So we could have, at Ms. Kidio's request, we could have had this in closed.
Yes. It was his request specifically to have it in open.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Is there any trustee with a request for further deliberation?
I'm going to move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law of the hearing officer.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Chapa. Is there a second? Second?
I believe a motion would have to also say, and non-renew the term contract.
Okay.
Because findings of fact and conclusions of law makes that recommendation also.
Mr. Chapa, would you like to
Sure.
restate your motion?
Yeah, I move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law and non-renew Ms. Carrillo's contract.
Motion from Mr. Chapa. Ms. Fowler, do you still agree to second? Second by Ms. Fowler. Trustees, please move to vote. All trustees vote in the affirmative. The motion passes. This hearing is now closed. Please give us a moment to transition for our next and final hearing. Thank you for your patience. We will now move to item 13, the level 4 grievance hearing for Sarah Cook.
Got it? Testing? Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Cook, you've requested that we do this in closed session. So under Texas Government Code 551071, 551074, and 5510... Under the Texas Government Code, the provision that allows you to go into closed session with regard to student information, we are now going to go into closed. The time is 10:20. We're going to have to get a recording device, though, since we don't have one prepared because we were going to be in open. Okay. Is there anyone there? Do you have a recording device? One. Okay. I don't need one. It's okay. So we'll just close the doors and stay here. Okay, that's fine.
And we'll just we will still use our mics for audio.
Okay. Okay. All right. The board is back in open at 10:58. The board did not take any vote or other action in closed meeting. The board has heard the complaint of Sarah Cook. Is there a motion?
Thank you, President McMurrow. I do have a motion. I just want to preface it by saying that, when we sit as a level 4 grievance panel, we're focused on there's a lot of things that happen as a case evolves from being filed at the level 1 level, but we're focused on, what is the crux of the grievance. And in this case, it was the failure to notify the parent that her child had had a conversation with the principal and questioned. When we sit as a level 4 panel, we're focused on did staff follow the law? Did they follow policy? Did they break the law or violate policy? And we certainly believe in parental rights and prompt parental notification where it's required. In this particular instance, I think that we don't find that there was it doesn't seem like there was a law or policy that was violated. And so I'm going to move to affirm the level 3 decision and adopt it as the decision of the board.
We have a motion by Trustee Chapa. Is there a second? Second. Sorry. We have a motion on the floor by Trustee Chapa and a second by Ms. Haynes. Trustees, please move to vote. The motion carries unanimously.
The complaint proceeding before the Board of Trustees is now concluded.
Thank you, Mr. Eichelbaum. Thank you, Ms. Cook. All items on tonight's agenda have been addressed, and we have no matters.
You too.
We have no matters to discuss in closed session. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 11 o'clock p.m.